Live fast, die young.
Good evening. Hello. Welcome to the Outcasts Creative channel with me, co-founder of the Outcasts Creative, Lance Nielsen. We've got a great chat tonight. This is the first episode of something called Chewing the Fat, where we basically chew the fat about a particular topic, genre of film, television, theatre, drama, whatever it may be. And tonight we are doing historical films set within the era of 1938 to 1945. For those people who are the uninitiated, that was the era of World War II, in case you hadn't got that already. I've got some fantastic guests that I'm going to bring on shortly. We've got Paul Woodage from World War II TV. I'm going to let him talk about his channel in just a second. And we also have Robbie and Matt from Fighting on Film. If you don't know about their channels already, I have already put some links in the blurb below. I'll probably be amending and updating that with a bit more information later. And we are going to talk about our top five films set within that era, but we're going to break them into two categories. So we're going to do five that are top five English language or kind of Hollywood-backed movies. That also includes some that have got depictions from multiple countries in films like The Longest Day, that kind of thing, but they were primarily backed by a Hollywood studio. And then we're going to talk about our top five foreign films set within that era. So I'm going to bring on my guests with no further ado. We have Paul Woodage from World War II TV, Robbie from Fighting on Film, The Armourer's Bench, and Matt from Fighting on Film, The Armourer's Bench. Is it The Armourer's Bench or is it Fighting on Film, guys? Clarify this for me.
So my project's The Armourer's Bench. And then Robbie's got our military history, which is his YouTube channel. And then together we do the Fighting on Film podcast.
All right. So it's a podcast and two different channels.
Yep.
Okay, brilliant. Robbie, send me an email with all those different links in. And when we've done the show, I will update it and add that in for people that watch this later so they can check out the stuff you do. I've watched quite a bit of The Armourer's Bench. Fantastic stuff, a lot of attention to detail of topics that you wouldn't normally find explored. I'm sure you'll find them really interesting. Before I introduce my next guest, I'm going to put on a special hat. There we go.
Yeah.
My next guest is Paul Woodage from none other than World War II TV, a channel that I have seen grow in recent times from its infancy. I think you started it a couple of years ago, I want to say 3 maybe.
Yep, 2 years ago, yep.
And I remember we had a conversation when you told me you were starting it, and it was exactly around the same time that someone very close to me was shouting in my ear going, you should start a YouTube channel. And I was going, no one's going to want to listen to me. But you did it, and it's really grown. It's fantastic. Tell us a bit about World War II TV, Paul.
I bring on historians one at a time over a course of a theme week. So we're in Naval Battles Week at the moment. So 6 shows. So we tackled tonight. We tackled the yachtsmen volunteers who joined the Royal Navy in 1939. Tomorrow we're tackling mine sweeping off Murmansk, and next week it'll be something else. And each week we do a different theme, and we bring guests on. We just talk for a couple of hours. So it's that's it. It's cool, really. I enjoy it.
And you do a lot of battlefield visits. Sometimes you live stream them from your channel.
We do,
I remember watching a few of those.
Yeah, that's sort of more when we get towards the kind of summer when the weather is more conducive to doing that. But yeah, because I live in Normandy, we'll be doing some live streams from the beaches and things. So yeah, that'll start up in a few weeks' time, really.
Lucky bugger. He lives in Normandy. So that's an after drinks party at Paul's Villa in Normandy.
Yeah,
so
we're all welcome. Yeah.
No, man, I've got to come down and actually, one of the things I really want to do that's on my bucket list is, I had the name and it's gone. The village from the beginning of World at War.
Or also Glan.
Glan, and I really want to visit that. I know it's kind of like a protected monument, but it would be great to do that with you, Paul, because you'll know everything about that, I'm sure. That's worth knowing, and been a couple of interesting films made about that actually, which we may well, who knows, one of them might be in someone's list. All right, fantastic. So most other channels that have been going for a while and are really experienced at this sort of thing would now have a fantastic graphic that they would put up when we do our different film choices. I have a writing whiteboard that I'm going to put them on. We're really advanced here at the Outcast Creative, but all that technical stuff, I'm great at writing scripts. I can write a 120-page script in 48 hours, and I've done it. But so I'm going to put my tank hat back on because I don't want to feel, that I'm upstaging Paul. Impossible to do that. So, guys, let's do let's start off easy. Let's do number 5. So number 1 is obviously top pick. Number 5 of our English language films, or I don't want to use the word war. I feel that's for those people watching at home. We booked this show about 2 months ago. War in the Ukraine had not broken out at that time.
No.
I did sort of think, is this a good time to be talking about war films? But I call them historical films personally, because they're not. War's not the only thing they're about. And we need to learn about history still, even while the things are going on in the Ukraine. Because if we don't learn about history, we're destined to repeat it. I think the phrase goes. Does anyone want to say anything about that before we start? Paul first, maybe?
No, just on that subject of talking about the war, I was of the opinion that I should sort of knock my shows on the head while this war is raging, and I had some, qualms about it. And then I've had a couple of chats with people. I did Romania at war last week, and one of the chaps who was on my channel, his mum was in Russia, his brother was in Romania, and his cousins are in Ukraine or something. And he just convinced me that dialogue is good. Talking about people coming together, whether they're talking about war or not, or in this case, historical movies, is good. And if people are coming together and communicating, it's good. So it cheered me up a bit about the fact that I think it is okay to keep on talking about the past, even though there's a current war going on. So I've come over my hurdle with that regard.
I think also, Paul, I would add to that there's not many veterans left. I mean, I interviewed a whole load, as you know, that were involved in Operation Dead Stick. And I got about 8 of them on film, and they're all dead now. They've all gone. So, and the memories of the people who've been told the stories by those people, those memories are fading too. And you really do go into the minutiae of battles in quite a lot of detail. So if you're not going to get those stories and those details now, in 5 years' time, it's going to be even harder for someone to get them, I would say.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you do a great job, and I put my foot in the same camp, and my love and heart does go out to the people of Ukraine. I've got several friends that have got spouses from that country, some of whose family are having to be extricated, and it's a difficult situation. Matt, want to say anything about that before we begin?
No, I firmly agree. I think the study of war has to continue, whether there's wars ongoing anywhere. If you pause the study of warfare and military history for any time there was a conflict around the world, I think we wouldn't get very far. I think there's that humans are constantly fighting somewhere, be it on a scale that we're seeing in Ukraine or the ongoing wars in the Middle East, etc. So I think to continue is only right, and it's only just that we keep doing this, and it eventually what people like us will do is study the conflict in Ukraine and give it the perspective and context that it deserves as well.
Yeah, very well put, Robbie.
I just want to just briefly do a shout out because
John
JD from History Underground, another YouTube channel, JD is on the Polish-Ukrainian border right now helping people. So
wow,
he's literally quit temporarily his YouTube channel where he's done some stuff with me and other things. He's out there. His adopted family are from the Ukraine. His children are from there. So he's out there collecting donations, giving people suitcases and luggage, and giving them maps and telling them how to get to places. So the YouTube community, albeit not me, is actually going out there and responding to this. So my hat off, metaphorically speaking, to people who are actually going out there and doing it for real.
And there's constant streams on YouTube of CCTV in Kiev and places like that, and you can see, like, you know, artillery shells and things going off in the distance. It's just so strange to be able to view these conflicts on those kinds of terms, as opposed to when we were kids, which was basically, you know, we had two things: the movies that came on the holiday break, and World at War with Laurence Olivier, and maybe the odd documentary on the BBC. So it just goes to show how far things have come. Robbie, anything to add before we go to our first pick?
You know, I had the same sort of feeling like Woody, where early on I was like, you know, is this right? Should I keep doing it? But, you know, talking to Matt, who is actually involved in defence journalism, he's been keeping Overt Defence's website up with daily updates, and I've sort of been helping him find bits and bobs for that too. But it's like, you know, everyone is part of this sphere. We're only going to be able to learn about what's happened and understand and learn from it if we document it and we keep it in our minds. Because if we don't, then what the hell was the point in it all anyway? That's what I sort of take from it. So yeah, I think it's important that we keep doing it, and you know, regardless of our you know, fears and things. So that's my thoughts.
Brushing history under the carpet is indeed never the way to go, in my humble opinion.
Yeah, of course.
Just going to say a quick hello to chat. We've got 12 people watching, a minuscule number for my channel, but very much appreciated. I just want to say hello to Darren Little, David K, who's a big fan of yours, Paul. WW2TV is COVID.
I brought in the hardcore for you,
yeah. COVID silver lining, he says, and also he mentioned the quote that I also said. And Darren Little as well. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions for our panel or comments as we go, I'll try and get to them without breaking up stuff too much. And hello to Cliff Derlin as well. So what I asked my panel to do is to pick 10 films in all, 5 that are predominantly what we would call Hollywood movies or English-speaking movies, financed by, you know, the sort of typical Western stuff. So you're talking about films like Fury, Midway, to pick a couple of recent examples. And I also included multi-studio productions within that category. So, for example, The Longest Day would fit within that category. And then non-English language speaking films financed from other countries in Europe, and probably predominantly shot in Europe. So that would be films like Kefalonia, Das Boot, the German version of Stalingrad, the Russian version of Stalingrad, the 3 different Battles for Warsaw movies that there have been, and so on and so on and so on. Those are the types of, so we've got those 2 categories. So we're going to do our number 5 pick, which I'm going to add to our scoreboard in a minute. For English language speaking. And Paul, I think I'm going to let you have first shot, sir. So what's your number 5?
The Enemy Below.
The Enemy Below. That's the Kurt Jurgens.
Robert Mitchum.
Kurt Jurgens was the submarine commander. Robert Mitchum.
Yep. And I'm just particularly taking the fact you said when you invited us, favorite film, which isn't necessarily best film, because in my warped way of my brain works, they're not quite the same. Because best implies kind of a worthiness, maybe, that most favorite is kind of like you can have a favorite fast food, but you wouldn't list a fast food restaurant as the best, would you?
No.
True.
I mean, with my choices, I've focused more on historical movies. But I've also said within my top 10, there'd be a lot of Five Guys on a Mission. The Enemy Below, now that was released, I want to say around 62, something
57.
like that. 57. Okay. And I first saw that on TV, and that's a dual movie between a destroyer, commander of an American destroyer, and the commander of a German U-boat. And one of the things I really like about that is it's a really good script that humanizes the Germans. They're not just portrayed as the normal bad guys. Is that a fair comment?
Yeah, definitely. And that's why I like it, I think, because in that era, the 50s, you didn't really get the German point of view. It was, or the Japanese point of view. It was, everything was from the Allied point of view. And interestingly, I didn't know this when I picked it, but the show I did tonight on my channel had a connection, because the original novel that The Enemy Below is based on was about a British destroyer and a British action, and it was a guy called Dennis Rayner, and Dennis Rayner actually was mentioned in by my guest in the show I did earlier. So weirdly, it's come up twice there. But to me, Enemy Below, classic naval movie, it does what it's supposed to do. It entertains me, and that's why it's one of those ones I go back to again and again, because I never don't enjoy it.
I've got to say that I do really like that movie, and I remember when I saw it as a kid, I was surprised by how much I like it and had those confusing feelings of, why am I sympathetic for the Germans? They're bad. Surely aren't they bad? Matt or Robbie, did either of you have that in your list anywhere else? If so,
No.
do mention it, but don't say where.
I don't have it. I don't know if Matt does.
I don't
Matt
either.
covered it a few weeks ago on the podcast.
If you do have a duplicate, say yes, I've got it, but don't say where, and we'll get to it. It's not in mine, but great. I think that's a great choice, Paul. I do like that film. Some people in chat are agreeing. Scott Grimwood, The Enemy Below, is excellent. Matt, as you also have a beard, you get to go next. What if you've got braces, you get a cookie. What is your number 5? English.
My number five is Merrill's Marauders. That's a 1962 Sam Fuller film about Merrill's Marauders, and it's about the Burma campaign and one of the axes of advance towards Myitkyina, and it's got Jeff Chandler and Ty Harding.
Ty Harding, that's who I was thinking of. Ty Harding, yeah.
And it was written by a chap that was actually on Merrill's staff, his command staff. So it's a really good film, and there's some marvelous set pieces. It gets across all the horrible intricacies of fighting in jungles, and you feel the landscape and the way that Fuller captures that breadth of not only open plains but also jungle and the confines of marching through swamps and streams and stuff. It's a great little movie.
That's set within the sort of same landscape as The Play, which has also been a film, The Long, the Short, and the Tall, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes. Which the BBC production of that really stuck with me when I saw that as a kid. They captured.
We covered that recently on the podcast.
We did that like 2 weeks ago. Yeah.
That's probably why it's in my head, because I do watch a lot of your things. Great choice. Ty Harding, I believe, didn't he have a part in Battle of the Bulge? Am I thinking of the same actor? He was. He was the turncoat. He was the American German who was leading the paratrooper unit. Yeah. I mean, for all of its faults, but that storyline in Battle of the Bulge with that unit, I really did like that storyline. Merrill's Marauders, Matt's choice, number 5. So, Robbie, what's yours?
My number 5 pick is 1949's Battleground, written by Robert Pirosh, directed by William Wellman, stars Van Johnson.
Jack Palance?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. I think so. Won 2 Oscars. No, I don't think it did win. No. Someone shaking their head there.
No, I was saying
it wasn't Jack Palance.
It wasn't Jack Palance. No, my mistake.
Oh, it wasn't Jack Palance. No,
that's
I thought it was.
Woody, what's the film? I can't remember the name of it.
Jack Palance.
Maybe he was he in something similar?
Attack. He's in Attack.
Attack, where he gets his arm.
That's the one.
Yeah,
I was thinking of Attack.
So Battleground, it won 2 Oscars. It's about 101st Airborne in the Battle of the Bulge, and it was one of the first big American productions after the war. And it's just a great war film because it's written by someone who was there. Robert Pirosh went in and relieved Bastogne. And it's just a fantastic post-war movie. You're not expecting it. I wasn't expecting it, at least when I first saw it. to be as good as it is, it still holds up fantastically. The characters you can still care for because it's more about the men than the fighting. I think there's maybe 1 or 2 sections where they're actually fighting the war, and the rest of it is them digging in, talking about, are they going to be able to go home, talking about their fears, their wants. It's just a really great movie, and it's not something you expect to see straight after the war's been fought. And it does a lot to sort of soften the blow of the impact of the war at home by doing quite well domestically. So yeah, it's a great film. Check it out.
That's for sure. That's for dang sure.
I'm going to put my hand up, guys, and say I'm not sure, and I might go when I put it on. I might go, oh yeah, I saw this as a kid. I'm not sure I've seen it.
Oh, you have to.
Fabulous. It's a fabulous.
Both Matt and Robbie's choices nearly made my top 5. So
Listen,
right on. We're on the same page, you guys.
We'll see.
It's got Ricardo Montalban in it, Wrath of Khan himself.
That's the one.
So if he doesn't say from hell's heart I spit at thee, I'm going to be very disappointed. But I'm going to be looking for him. Guys, I'm
definitely want another jumper. I know that.
Yeah, I did get that mixed up. Darren Little corrected me. I got that mixed up with Attack, and I think the reason for that is I think one of the log lines for one of the Attack posters got something like it was a fierce battleground or something like that written underneath it. So Battleground, good choice. Well, my one's not as old as any of these, but it is. I'm always surprised by the number of people that have not seen this, and mine is Uprising. So this was directed by John Avnet in 2001. It had a pretty big budget. It did get a cinema release in Europe, sadly not in the UK. I don't think it got a cinema release in the States. It went straight to television. It was shown as a 2-part miniseries on some TVs, but it's basically a 3-hour movie. And have you guys all seen it?
Yep.
I've not.
No, I haven't seen it.
Wow, look at that. Okay, guys, if you do a special about this on your channel, I've got to be on it. So it's a really, really, really good film. Here's some of your leading cast. You've got Donald Sutherland there. David Schwimmer in probably the other best role that he's done since
the voice of Hank Azaria and the voice of
Hank Azaria from The Simpsons, indeed. It's a really lovely set, actually, that I've got with, nice kind of... and I bought... This was one of the first DVDs I bought in the States, and there's a whole load of extras on it as well. And it is about the Jewish uprising. And an actor that I subsequently directed in a play, Luke, is also in it. So he was able to give me all the SP about how it was built. It was predominantly shot in Germany, and they built the ghetto on what is now, I think, a Sainsbury's car park, or German equivalent of Sainsbury's. And they built this whole massive set for the ghetto, and they completely destroyed it during filming as it was destroyed. The battle scenes in it are really well done, but you've also got a top quality cast: Donald Sutherland, John Voight, David Schwimmer, Hank Azaria, Lily Sabowski, I think you say her name, is also in it. And the supporting cast and the Polish cast are very, very good as well. And it's a battle that I find really interesting because it's the one time when the guy stood up and said no, and really put up a brave fight, because there's a good quotation where, France capitulated in however many days it was, and the Warsaw Rising went on for longer than that. And Hitler wanted it subdued for his birthday, and it didn't happen, which I thought was fun. So that's my number 5.
Have to seek that one out.
Let's go to foreign language then. It's nice that actually we've both got films to watch already, and we're only on the first one. Let's see if we can catch Paul out with a film he hasn't seen. I think we might be pushing it, but if we can. All right, so foreign language choice then, Paul, number 5. And I've got loads on mine. I've got a short.
Yeah, I it was easy, but I had lots I didn't put in. But Dark Blue World, the Czech.
Oh, I love that film.
Czech
That's
film,
a great
Spitfires,
movie.
lovely, just fantastic. What can you say? I mean, it's to me, we haven't had since Battle of Britain a film that highlighted British fighter aircraft like Dark Blue World did. I mean, although it's a Czech film, it just, to me, it it was a Spitfire. It was flying. And the story was believable. It wasn't like Pearl Harbor where the Battle of Britain scenes were just thrown in for, let's not go down that path.
Yeah, well, yeah.
And the thing is, when I will come up in some other choices. I'm sure it's not the war. The setting of the war doesn't necessarily have to be real. It has to, to me, it has to say something about the history. So a film can be fictitious, but be saying something about the period that doesn't necessarily make it a historical film, but it's saying something. And
I agree.
Dark Blue World says something
far better than Hurricane and those recent films about the Polish Squadron. They're a little bit lacking.
Hurricane and 303 there was. Or something.
Yeah, they're not fabulous, are they? The funny thing about Dark Blue World, I remember watching my parents when it first came out, and I think my dad bought it from the local shop, and then he put it in this DVD bin that we used to have, like a little plastic thing, and then that bin never got touched, and then I just remember seeing Dark Blue World just get dustier and dustier and dustier. And that's my one thought of that movie, is just to seeing this dusty DVD cover of it. It's only got watched once. I felt quite sorry for it.
I got to see it. I saw it at the cinema.
Wow.
At the Odeon Holloway Road. It had a limited cinema release in London for about 2 weeks. It was on, and I just said to my then flatmate, "There's a World War II movie on down the road. We're going. I haven't got any money. Don't worry, Buddha will provide." And which usually meant I paid for him. And we went and watched it. The scene that really sticks in my head, Paul, is the Czech pilots. It's Czech pilots, isn't it?
Yeah.
Training on bicycles.
Yeah.
Going over hilltops, going da 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 like this, and they're training, and they've got like these kind of pennants with different coloured flags for the different teams. And I'm thinking, God, that's the sort of thing we used to do at school when we were playing the Battle of Britain. But these guys actually, they wouldn't give them aircraft, so they said, go and train on some bicycles. Insanity.
For me, I just think the important thing that it says is that from a British point of view, we think of the end of the war, VE Day, everything's free again, and the Americans get the GI Bill. It highlighted the fact that if you were from a country like Czechoslovakia, that then became Czech Republic, Poland, you've got 30, 40 more years of communism. And in the case of these Czech pilots, most of them were in prison for the next few years because they were considered by the communists to be rebellious. So no victory parade. It's just they've helped win the war and then they get locked up. And to me, that was an important thing to talk about. It's like you said about the European movies. The European movies often have much more of a tragic part of it because there's this sense of it not getting the victory. The Polish movies are all very bleak, aren't they? There's no one survives a Polish movie about World War II. Pretty much, they all die. And it's important to be reminded that World War II doesn't always, for a lot of countries, didn't end with the ticker tape victory parade.
Yeah, it's very true.
I want to hear what the other guys. I want to hear what their choices are now.
No, yeah. So Matt, what is your 5 pick for foreign language, number 5?
It was tricky. It was between a couple, but in the end, I went with one that I really enjoyed the set pieces of, which was Pamfilov's 28 Men, which was a Russian production, from 2016, and it's about the German advance on Moscow and the battle around Moscow in 1941, and there's some brilliant set pieces, lots of attention to detail, and it was an independent production. And one of the things I really liked about it was they combined practical miniature effects with blue screen in the actual field that they were filming in to recreate some of the German tanks that were attacking them. And it was very well crafted, and it always stood out to me as probably one of the less political Russian films that have been made recently, because we've had a whole slew. The recent
T-34.
T-34 and those kind of the Stalingrad movie the Russians made recently, not the German 90s version. It's dripping in patriotic fervor. Whereas Pamfilov's 28 Men isn't.
No.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Panilov's 28 was very gritty. I'm going to let Paul chime in on the factual side of that in a minute, because I bet he's going to have something to say.
It's good though. It's a good film.
Yeah,
But it is.
And
good.
I struggled because I wanted to put a Russian film in my 5. Then I thought, right now, I'm not going. If you'd asked me 3 weeks ago, I probably would have included one. But right now, I just didn't feel like doing it.
There are so many. There's loads from the 70s, but they've all got that slightly Russian
tinge,
political fervor tinge to them. Yeah, Rob. And Pamphilobs, I just didn't get that. I mean, you get that look at the statues that they've built.
Well, it
at the
was
end
a
of
Last Stand movie, wasn't it? That was what it was. Just a Last Stand film. It was simple.
It's a much more personal perspective of the war.
They don't shoehorn in any pro-party lines.
No,
in there.
But the Commissar's only in it for like one scene, and he's never seen again.
And he's kind of mocked as well.
Yeah, and they take the mickey out of him. Yeah, it's a good one. Yeah,
I mean, that's that is an interesting choice. I had a couple of Russian movies that they're in my top 10, but they're not quite over the mark for the top 5. I did like that film. I thought it was really good. I don't know if you're aware, but there was a massive debate about it online. I want to say about a year ago, it may have been longer, about how historians were fighting over the fact that it might have all been made up as Soviet propaganda, and that the story wasn't true. I did a bit of digging of my own, and some of the
men that said they were there turned up alive and such, and they put in fake names, and it was written for the Politburo, and it came from a story from that, they think. But it's just a good Last Stand movie, and that's always something that I always enjoy.
I think
in the war movie genre, I think it's a subset of film.
I think it probably was a true depiction of what many Russian units had small actions like that, and whether it was Panilov's 28 guys or another, 28 guys 2 miles down the front that way. I think it's a fairly really good accurate depiction of small action.
When we covered that on our show, I've got a 1942 pamphlet that was produced by the Soviet Union to sell in the UK. And I think it's called like Stalingrad Fights or Stalingrad Lives. And it's like a fiction. It reads like fiction. It's like, and then we shot the tank and we ran to the factory to grab more ammo. You don't really, reading it, you don't really mind if it's not true because it's such a good story. And I think that's why that movie works as well. It works on both levels. It's just a great film. At the end of the day, it's a good watch. And I think sometimes that's more important than whether a movie is 100% accurate as well sometimes.
It's got to be engaging, otherwise, you don't care because you turn off and switch over or hit Netflix or whatever. So it's up on the board. Panilov's 28. So we're looking for. Sorry, I think I've got that in the wrong place. This is in Robbie's space. I'll just move that.
Oh,
Robbie, what's yours?
Well, I would assume some of us have got this one. Mine are in no particular order, really. But 5 is Das Boot from 1981.
That is also in my top 5.
I'm
not going to say where, but it's there.
Wolfgang Pedersen. The practical effects in it are just top notch. You wouldn't think this movie was made in the early 80s, especially in Western Germany. It holds up so well. I remember my dad's a big submarine guy. From an early age, he would play submarine games on his DOS computer. He'd have the light turned off. He was really into it. And we would watch Das Boot a lot. And my sort of formative years were watching naval World War II movies. So this is one that really sticks with me. It's claustrophobic. The men get dirty and grimy. It's not your typical Hollywood fest where everyone's got perfect teeth, perfectly shaved. No, the guys, you really feel for them. They slept in that set they made. Just a fantastic film. And it's one of the earlier I say earlier, there obviously were German movies made after the Second World War, but it's this sort of reappraisal of the German experience of the war starting. There's another film I've written about that I'll talk about later in my list that I think does another reappraisal of German experiences of the war. But this one's, such a great one, isn't it? Yeah.
Das Boot is fantastic. I'm going to guess that Paul and I are of the generation that the first time England ever got to see any of Das Boot was when it was shown as a mini series on BBC 2 at 9 o'clock, which had an English-speaking posh person doing a recap last time on board.
That's right. Yes, I've forgotten that. Yeah.
And last time on Star Trek Enterprise, it really was a bit like that, and there was a little recap, and it was like a 6-hour cut or something, because it was about 6 episodes. I think each episode was about an hour, and I have a vague recollection that I think it was actually on consecutive nights, but I might be wrong.
I don't know, but I tried to search out the TV series. It's actually not as good as the film. The film, the series just expands the ideas to the point where, we know it's like all the good things Robbie just said are overdone in the TV version. The movie is efficient.
I was forced to watch both. The movie's so much better.
Yeah,
who saw the re-release?
I haven't seen it. Don't want to see it. Don't care.
But that's like just a slightly different cut. But it was re-released. It was they cleaned up the negative.
I think I've seen every cut.
It was re-screened. I don't know how much that cut is different from the one that. There's so many different cuts of it. There was the original miniseries. There was a version that was released as a movie on VHS, which I also used to own. And then the first version on DVD was not the same cut as the VHS feature film version. And then there was a director's cut, which was also re-released in the cinema. I think the director's cut overall is probably the best one. But
how they got that, the conning tower being hit with water by throwing a skip of water at it. Like, amazing practical effects. They don't do that now. That's why these movies hold up so well. It's because when Steiner gets hit by a load of water, he's really getting hit by a load of water. Not just someone throwing a bucket at him. It's like 2 tons of water hitting him. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Just really.
You really feel the claustrophobia. Yeah. The one thing I also remember really distinctly about that film is the way that the physicality of the engineer changes. Johan. The character of Johan, and he's a really young, youthful guy, and by the end of it, he looks like he's anorexic and ghostly, and just looks really ill.
The cars weren't allowed out in the sun, were they? They weren't allowed to go. That's why they all end up getting pasty, and that they tried as best they can to recreate what it was like to spend most of your time under the water in a lump of steel, and you see that unhealthiness that you don't see in other war films. Even the enemy below that I was Robbie, my choice earlier. No. It's still a little bit clean. The Germans are a bit grabby, but they're kind of they're stage grabby, not grabby.
Yeah.
You see what they're trying to do in Enemy Below, but the set's a bit too big. The vests are a bit too clean. Yeah, but in this one, it's the scene that I love the most. I think that I remember the most from Dad's Boot is when they're in the I think they're refueling and they go onto that big tanker, and that they're having a buffet, and all the lads are sticking all the food in their pockets.
Yeah.
Such a great scene. And then obviously at the end when spoiler alert, but when the bombers come at the end and bomb the U-boat pens.
Killer ending.
Ending.
Yeah. I never forget that ending because it sort of comes out of nowhere. And then some of those characters that you were kind of rooting for, like the chubby, cheerful bloke, and I can't remember his name, but I mean, and it was based on a true story because the guy who wrote the book on which it was based, didn't he go out on a tour with them? I seem to recall that character was real. The guy that's there as a journalist. He did go on to write a book, which became the basis for the film. Is that right, Paul? I'm pretty sure that's right.
No, I can't remember. Possibly. Yeah. I don't know.
Fab. Well, look, that's a great
Sharks and Fishes. There was a book called that something was based
on. It definitely was based on the writings of a guy.
Sharks and Little Fish. Yeah. Is it that book? It might be.
Yeah. And that was a German movie in the 50s. Or
I think so as 50s, well.
Yeah.
Stephen Brooks saying
we're going down the rabbit hole, aren't we?
The Mind Palace is busy tonight. Yeah.
We're only on our second movie.
My foreign language choice then. Well, I've got 2 that were really fighting for this position. One of them was The Siege of the Brest Fortress, which has got about 3 other titles, which is, again, I would say, as a Russian movie, it's not too flag wavy, and it's a really good depiction of the first days of the Russian invasion. So I'm going to give that a special shout out. It didn't quite make in my top 5, but for foreign films, but it was definitely in my top 10. But my number 5, so I'm the first person to pick a Japanese movie, and my number 5 is both a film and a television series. And unlike Das Boot, they're not recuts of the same. One company made a feature-length movie, and another company made a full-length Band of Brothers-esque style series. And this is called The Eternal Zero. And I have imported from Japan the box set of the series, which sadly has every subtitle known to man except English for reasons that are unknown to me. But I knew that when I ordered it, and I still wanted it. And it's a really, really beautiful box set, and it follows the trials and tribulations of a Zero pilot, but it's his grandson that's trying to find out about him. And he goes back to speak to another relative, I think his son, and there's kind of, it's told through flashback. Now, the feature film takes the same format, which I've got the disc of over there. I wanted to show you this box set as well because it's really beautiful. And you know, he's as the character, and it's based on a book as well, which apparently is also based on a true story. Even comes with its own map of the campaigns. Look at this. Inside the box set, and there's like a guide to where the guy fought and the different battles and this kind of thing for the episodes. So it's got a I mean, we're not including series, but I wanted to mention the series as well as the movie. The movie is also very, very good. It's just a condensed version of the same story. Has anybody else seen it? I've got a movie that Paul hasn't seen. So
heard of it. I have heard of it, but not seen it. Yeah. The
Eternal Zero. I mean, you know, not everybody's into Pacific Campaign. I mean, if it's World War II, I'm always interested, regardless of the front. And I think Band of Brothers Pacific got me more interested in that field of the conflict, and I wanted to find out more about the Japanese perspective, which always feels a bit elusive. You know, you kind of associate it with kamikazes, and it's not getting the humanistic side of the Japanese story has always not really been there in the film market until about 10, 15 years ago. And then there was quite a lot of films. Another one which was nearly probably would be in my top 10 is Battleship Yamato, which was a fantastic Japanese production. And they built a sort of 1/3 scale set of the battleship all along one side, which I think is still a permanent tour somewhere. You can go and see it. You can find pictures of it online. An amazing set. And that followed a group of men who just man one of those anti-aircraft batteries. So they've got some really interesting stories, and they've done some really interesting films. And if you want to start off with a good movie, Scott Grimm was just asking, is there an English subtitle version of the feature film? Yes, it's widely available in both America and the UK. Of the series, I haven't been able to find it yet. I have once I watched the feature film, I could kind of understand what's going on in the series. There's a lot of family scenes where I was thinking, what are they talking about? But Paul says he's going to come around and translate for me when I watch it next time. So it's all going to be good. Brilliant. So we're on to pick number 4, and it's back to our English language choices of films. So Paul, your turn to go, sir.
Very easy. Sea of Sand, 1958. Long Range Desert Group.
Yeah. Sea of Sand.
Bloody love it.
Richard Attenborough, Vincent Ball, John Gregson, Percy Herbert, Barry Foster. Everyone's in it, and
that's half the cast of the Wild Geese, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, and it to me, it sets up a lot of the tropes that then endure through the 60s and 70s of the British, the characters have morphed from the 40s. The 40s characters are very much the upper class, John Millsy, David Niveney kind of people, and then the Cockney. But the 60s was a little bit more of the 50s and 60s, a bit more of a kind of mixing up of those things. And Sea of Sand to me sets up that whole thing that took us into Too Late the Hero, The Wild Geese, all those other. Even Zulu kind of has a connection a little bit with that kind of mix of different types of Brits together. And so Sea of Sand is and spoiler alert, the death of Percy Herbert when he's been left to die with the vicar's gun and he's got the radio on, he's listening to Gardner's Well back in England and whatever it is.
I can picture that scene.
Beautifully shot and beautifully played.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so good.
And yeah, Richard Attenborough is good, and he can sometimes be a bit too over the top, but he's good and restrained in it. John, it's just a brilliant film about the Long Range Desert Group, and to me, yeah, that's it. That's why it's in there. But now I know you've said that, Robbie. There's now one that I'm wondering whether you have said because I was. We'll get to it later. But
don't say. Let's find
it's
out.
fantastic, isn't it? Because it's one of the only films about the LRDG filmed in Libya as well.
Oh my God, guys! It's being remade. It's being remade.
Sea of Sand,
is it?
Yeah, I just googled it. There's a remake in the works.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
We shall see.
First I've heard of that.
Sorry to interrupt. Do go on.
But Percy Herbert's Last Stand, isn't it? It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Like that whole sequence, so well shot. William Kennedy Shaw, he was an advisor on it as well. The one of the SAS formative members. It's just, and it was based on a mission that was relayed, but to one of the producers in the Second World War who worked on in the intelligence corps. I just love it. It's great. It's like a proper British men on a mission movie from the mid 50s. It's just fab.
It's got that Bren gun with a builder's pipe over it.
Mission. It's
not
like
a stupid mission.
Stupid. This will end. They talk about the guys who are just road watching, for example, don't they? The beginning and the end of it. Who just
they pop up.
There are some of those movies, The Guns of Navarone, which I love, and maybe that will be someone's pick. But that is like this is going to save the world. Sea of Sand is like it's a mission. It's gonna help a bit, but
it's before the men on a mission thing became so prevalent. I think, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a realistic mission. It's like you're just doing this to aid the war. You're not doing it to, you're not going to win at Al Alamein if they don't blow up
it's
that.
Just another little contributory action, and it shows what these guys do. And just a brilliant film. But
it's fab. Yeah, love it.
Brilliant.
That one's got 6.7 on IMDb. Not that means anything. Always ignore those ratings, people. If you want to, you should always check out things for yourself. Ray McAnally is in it as well. I know I saw this, but a really long time ago. Because I know the scene you're talking about with Percy Herbert's Last Stand. He was also in Guns of Navarone, incidentally. He got around a bit, didn't he?
Yeah,
he was a Sean Bean of his age. He normally
died. Yesterday's Enemy.
Yes, yeah. Cockshell Heroes, everything.
Yeah, cracking. I'm gonna track that down because I want to watch it with fresh eyes.
Good.
Rather than those of the eyes of a child, and then quickly going and recreating it with my Lego and Airfix soldiers upstairs, as I'm almost inevitably did. So, Sea of Sand. All right. So that was Paul's. So, Robbie, your number 4.
Number
English,
4
English language
is Theirs Is the Glory from 1947.
Great.
Only choice. Number 4.
That was on my Robbie bingo card.
I didn't know me too well with it. I haven't done these in necessarily order of loving. I've just done them. I love them all equally.
We just, it's approximate.
But This Is the Glory, 1947.
Yeah,
it was the first episode we ever did for Fighting on Film. It was the reason that we did Fighting on Film, actually, because I found someone finally in Matt who had seen it. Because I was just like, this movie's fabulous. Why has no one ever seen it?
Yeah.
Shot. For those people watching, it's about the Battle of Arnhem, and it was shot largely by the film unit who went back and shot it. I think in 46, if I'm
46. Shot
46,
there.
47, and a number of people took part playing themselves who were there.
Yeah, they pulled the lads who were up in Norway to film the movie. They said they went in their barracks one day. Said, we'll give you, I think it's like 3 and 6 or something a day. Do you want to go and film this movie? And they were like, yeah, sure, no problem. And there's a fantastic shot where they're walking through the town, meeting the villagers. and they've all got number 5 jungle carbines, because at that time in the war, the parachute regiment had been issued number 5 jungle carbines, and it just shows that they still got the kit they're issued with. Because a lot of them just picked up their kit bags and went down to production. But it's just a really good representation of the British at Arnhem, and I think I think I put it above. I know we've covered it a lot, but I put it above A Bridge Too Far, simply because I think it's. I do. It's controversial.
Words, but yeah, all right.
It's controversial, I know, but I do put it above it because it's so special within the genre that you don't get many war films that are shot a couple of years after the battle, where Arnhem is still smashed. There was tanks used in that film that was still there.
It was still there.
Yeah, where they wanted them. You know, you've got Stanley Maxted, the war correspondent, playing himself, talking you through the movie. You've got the Men of Arnhem March, which is one of the greatest war movie soundtracks ever, themes, and it's a special film, really special film.
You've got that great shot. You've got that great shot at the end of it where the guy comes back into the barracks that we saw at the beginning of the film, and you see all the empty beds.
Yeah,
and he's lost
really powerful ending.
He's lost all of his friends, and that sums up that battle so well, and that's so powerful. I think I mentioned before I picked up a copy of it from the Oosterbeek Museum, supposedly with a bit of original metal from one of the gliders with the emblem on it, which I still have in a box somewhere. And that was the first time I'd seen the movie, because so many people had mentioned it, and I thought, well, I've got to go and grab a copy of this. So when I was over, I got one, and it's mixed in as well with a lot of footage that was actually shot during the battle. So black and white, 1946. It is a certain type of movie, so maybe people under 25 are perhaps not going to find it as gripping.
Yeah, there's no actual scenes, there's no actual dialogue, and there's no real characters. It is just the men doing what they did, and I think that's why it's a special movie.
Yeah.
See, for me, some of the best. Sorry,
that's why see, we're going back to favorite and best. It might be in my best film, but it wouldn't be in my favorite. Because I understand. It's Too Far it's not on my list, but it might be in my favorite list. But theirs is the way it wouldn't. But best movie, because it's worthy, it's important, and it has a lot of merit. But it's not one I kind of feel an affection for. Does that make sense? It's not in that favorite sense. It doesn't. Bridge Too Far makes me feel kind of warm and fuzzy when I put it on. Theirs is a good. I enjoy it, but it's not. It's a different sort of feeling.
Yeah.
See, I'm the other way. I pine for what A Bridge Too Far could have been, even though it is still great. Don't get me wrong, and I like it. But I just pine for what that could have been, seeing as Days of the Glory came out first.
Yeah, we're going to talk more about Bridge Too Far later, because there ain't nothing I don't know about that film. In fact, I've got a call sheet, an original call sheet for it right over there.
Well, I think between the four of us, with the two of those having had all the Bridge Too Far extras and stuff in it, we can probably do about 5 hours on that between the four of us, I think, without even running out of things to say. Yeah.
No, Alan Tompkins told me. I just interrogated him during.
Yeah, I've sat with Alan Tompkins and had many a beer with him about Bridge Too Far, and
brilliant stories.
Massive rabbit hole.
Bless him. So very good. So we're going to go to Matt's fourth pick. We better push on a bit pacier. Otherwise we'll be here till 4 in the morning. Not that that's a problem for me, because that's normally when I go to bed. But Matt, what's your number 4 English language?
Dunkirk. Can you guess which one?
The original black and white Dunkirk. I'm assuming.
I hope the one is do
you know what? I really do love that movie. Good choice, sir. With Richard Attenborough looking very youthful.
John Mills, Bernard Lee, directed by Leslie Norman, doing a cracking job. It shows the breadth of that retreat far better than anything else has, really.
Yeah.
And the French even get featured in there, which is rare. That's my number 4. That jumped to mind immediately.
It's one of those films that I've got a lot of fondness for, and they did an amazing job with pulling all the different elements together and making it very real. I think the only thing that lets it down when you watch it now is you can see some of the backdrop hanging curtains, on your Blu-ray, because everything's the details so scaled up, and that's the sort of stuff I wouldn't mind them removing with a bit of CGI. I don't need to see the wires holding things. I'd be quite happy for them to get them out without I wouldn't consider that fiddling with the. But other people probably hold a different view on that. Great choice. I'm not going to talk about my number 4 too long, so we can push on. But my number 4 English language is Battle of Britain. So when I was younger, the one sort of element of World War II movies that didn't interest me as a kid was anything to do with aviation. And I can tell you why that is, because I was useless at making airfix kits and couldn't glue the bloody planes together. So because of that, I was like, I don't like the stuff with planes in it. I'm not going to watch that. And I didn't actually watch Battle of Britain properly until I was about 15, 16, something like that. It was much later. It was after A Bridge Too Far. And I thought, God, this is a cracking movie. Why didn't I see this before? And what a cast as well. Michael Caine, Christopher Plummer. I think Michael Caine might be the only leading cast of that still alive, probably.
Now that Christopher Plummer's died, I think so, yeah.
One of them,
yeah. And I didn't realise until later how many remote control planes they used in that movie and how effective they are. You've got some brilliant camera work there, some brilliant miniature work. I could talk about it a lot longer, but I think we should push on. But
Susanna York in her suspenders.
And the doorbell.
The doorbell had its own Twitter account.
Yeah, it's got its own Twitter account. Yeah.
You're not being followed by the Battle of Britain doorbell, Robbie.
Yeah, we
You've
are.
not made it yet. If you're not being followed,
is that a thing? Are you making a Battle of Britain doorbell?
The pod is the pod. I'll take that.
Yeah.
The Battle of Britain doorbell has its own Twitter account and comments on things.
Very funny. Very funny. It's
Great
not us,
choice,
by the
though.
way. We get accused of it being us, but it's definitely not us. Because if
That's
we were that clever, we'd have done it.
Yeah.
There's a Twitter account for Sam Elliott's moustache, which I have a suspicion is actually run by Sam Elliott. And I'm doing a big episode on 1883, which is a fantastic series, guys. You need to watch it.
There's
about the American West.
The sandwich from Saving Private Ryan's got its own account as well.
That I didn't know.
Do you remember that sandwich that they make for about 2 seconds?
I do. Where he's salivating and looking at it, bully beef, and because it's the first proper meal.
Into why that seems important another day, but yeah, that
people have too much time on.
They
their
do,
hands,
don't they?
they?
They do, don't they?
So, Paul, what's your number 4 pick foreign language? So with Dark Blue World, what's your next one?
I've gone cheesy.
Well, cheesy's good. We've got to have a couple of cheesy ones in here.
I've gone Battle of Neretva.
I've got that. Well, Richard Burton had a guest role in that.
No,
wasn't it?
No, Richard Burton is in. He's in the 5th Offensive, which is the next one. There's the 7 offensives in Yugoslavia, and the Battle of Neretva covers number 3 or number 4, and he's in the 5th Offensive as Tito, in fact, Richard Burton. But Battle of Neretva is, well, the Hollywood stars are Yul Brynner, again, Hardy Kruger, Franco Nero, and when I literally, like you, I remember the first time I saw it, I was off school with one of those fake colds. I was convincing my mum was a really big one, but it wasn't. And you get to that point, it was 2:00 in the afternoon. So, you can start showing that you're getting better now because she's not going to make you go to school now. It's 2:00 in the afternoon. And it was on Anglia. So I'm from Essex. It was on Anglia. And it came on. And I was like, I was about 9 or 10. I was like, I didn't know these films existed. I grew up on the British films, and it's like, and even at 9 or 10, I knew who, Yul Brynner was and what have you. And it was a 3-hour. It's a 3-hour film. There's different cuts. We go a whole show about the different cuts of it that are available. In it as well. Yeah, and it's just brilliant. It's not good, but it's brilliant. If you say, I mean, there's replica Tiger tanks in it. There's like shitloads of T-34s and stuff in it. And it opened my mind to the fact that there are wars in parts of the world that we don't talk about in Britain, because we just didn't talk about the Yugoslavian campaign, and we still don't. It's just the Chetniks, the partisans, and sure, the politics are a bit iffy in it because all of that Yugoslavian cinema is very communistic because that's when it was made, and the Chetniks are all baddie. That's the one. But I just love it, and I've been buying
from Arrow Films for anyone watching. Arrow Films do it. There you go.
And I mean, because there's dubbed versions, there's subtitle versions. If you get a subtitle version, then it means you'll bring it. Because I'd like a dream version would be all the Yugoslavian actors subtitled but speaking their real language, but the English speaking actors speak in English. But you end up with Yul Brynner being dubbed. It's a brilliant movie, folks. But it's not a brilliant movie. If you know what I mean.
I've got this one of the same series. You're saying that there were 5 of these.
Well, no, in the war there were 7 offensives in Yugoslavia that I think they've made films of 3 or 4 of them. So the Richard Burton one covers the 5th offensive. I think the Battle of the Retva is either number 2 or number 3 or number 4.
Which one does Force 10 from Navarone cover, Woody?
Well, yeah,
that would be the same one as the Retva, I think. Yeah,
I think it might be. Yeah.
And weirdly, I'm hopefully going there in July because, long story short, and I'll let you. My brother-in-law, who was in the French Foreign Legion out there in that area in the Bosnian War, we're going back on a pilgrimage with him. So I should be able to get to the site of the bridge at Neretva and see that.
Yeah, because
I can't wait, frankly.
A lot of those movies all use that same bridge location, and it turns up in quite a few films. And I've got a feeling, wasn't that the same bridge that's downed in Kelly's Heroes that's in the background? Was that the same location?
Kelly's Heroes is not far away. It's up the road. Yeah, that was full of that.
I think they used that same bridge location for when they're crossing.
Well, they used the same mock-up tiger, didn't they? That's from Battle of Neretva.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah, it makes sense. They were all in a
T-485 that got converted.
They were pretty decent, I thought.
And actually, Yugoslavian cinema is, if I had to pick just one countries of foreign cinema to go with, I'd probably go with Yugoslavian cinema because there's
Waterloo
really
as well.
Good titles.
Yeah, but we're not doing muskets today, so no talk of Waterloo.
Okay.
All right, okay, good choice, Paul. So pushing on then, Robbie, second foreign language.
My second foreign language film is 2002's Zvezda, or The Star, as it was known in English.
Is that another Russian? Is that another
Russian film? Yeah, and it was the reason that I watched it was because many moons ago, I was a reenactor, and I did for about a year's span. I was in a Russian group, and this was one of the movies that I was asked to watch when I sort of got in the group. They were like, it's a decent representation of Russian scouts, and it's just another sort of last stand movie. They go on this behind the lines mission, and they eventually get caught. And
hang on, sorry, my ringtone just went off there. I thought I put it on silent.
Problem.
Please continue.
Jean-Luc Picard's going to come in and talk about Zvezda for a moment.
He is, yeah. I'm so sorry, guys. I thought I had it on vibrate.
No problem. And it's just another solid Russian war film, but it's because it's about the Russian scouts. There's a lot of cool kit in there, like they've got their overalls, like their sort of Mickey Mouse camouflage, some PPS 43 action. I just enjoyed it when I was younger, and I think it was one of the first foreign war films I ever watched. So yeah, I'd recommend it. It's okay.
Lot of good reviews on IMDb for this one. True Heroes. Somebody said good as propaganda only. Russia does Hollywood entertaining.
Yeah,
Front war film. I'm sure it's better than that film that came out recently called The Eastern Front. We won't talk about that one. Let's have a. I think if I'll try and pop the link for this because do you know what? I haven't seen that, and I really want to check that out. So I've just put the IMDb link for The Star in the chat for anybody who wants to check out Robbie's choice. And would you say that it's more of a suspense film than like a full-on action, or? Yeah,
it's quite suspenseful. I think there's a section where they have to go and there's a fuel dump or a motorcade, and they have to go in quite silently. That's quite well shot, actually. I know the movie won it's probably contentious because it's a government award, but it won a Russian government award for the best film of the year. So if that's anything to go off, Russians awarding their own movies best of the year, if that's anything to go off, then it's a good movie. I enjoyed it, but then I think the first time I saw it,
lads, present from Putin. He says, very good job.
So we'll see. But it's good. I mean, it's and as I say, there aren't many depictions of Russian scouts, so it's one for that sort of crowd if you're into that thing.
Yeah. Well, I do like my Russian front films if made well, and that one does look. That's one I'm going to track down. Thanks very much for that.
No problem.
So, Matt, your fourth foreign language pick. What you got?
Number 4 for me is a 2017 Finnish movie about the continuation war. called The Unknown Soldier, which that's also a book written.
Great film.
It is. It's fantastic. It's one of the most beautifully shot films that you can possibly watch. It's based on the Unknown Soldier book by I think it's Val Nolina, and it's got a cracking cast of Finnish actors, and it's beautifully directed. But it's just such a stunningly beautiful film. The expanses of those Finnish woodlands, and the forests, it's so beautiful. There's an amazing sequence where they cross a river under fire, and it's incredible. And there's a number of battles within woodland where it's just chaos, and it's also well choreographed and well shot.
So my one of my best friends was the pyro guy for that, and he directed a lot of the action second unit.
Oh wow!
And I actually got to see outtakes and a whole load of footage of it that wasn't even used, and that they had massive support from the Finnish government, and they were literally given a whole section of forest where it was like you can do what you want. So that's why they had so many massive explosions and trees being ripped apart. And that is a film where you do feel like the battle scenes have everything but the kitchen sink thrown in.
Yeah, it's an
great
incredible
choice. Yeah, that definitely gets a big thumbs up from me, guys. And maybe it's a bit little too late, but I'm for those lesser known films, I'm chucking in the IMDb links into the chat for people so you can follow up. And we'll probably have a complete list that I'll do as well and add to the bottom of the stream.
Yeah, your homework after the show.
Yeah, mate. I've got to do a timestamp for it all.
Robbie, you should have mentioned when you did the star that, of course, the kid from Come and See is in it, of course, as well.
Is he the lead? Is he like? Is it?
No, he's a sergeant. He's sergeant.
Wow.
Annie Canoff. Alexei.
Has anyone got Come and See?
Well, if I was doing a top 5 most disturbing films I've ever seen, that would definitely be in it.
It would be in all 5 positions. Come and See.
Yeah, I mean,
Come and See 5 times. I mean,
it's not in my list.
I think that's got some quite unfair flack recently. People being like, "Oh, it's not a good film. It's just horror for horror's sake."
I saw that in one of the.
I disagree massively with it whenever
online.
I see stuff like that.
No, I think it was quite a brave film for its time. I mean, let's not get
100%.
into it now because it's a bit off topic, but we can always come back and do that.
Disturbing
films that deeply disturbed you. Schindler's List. That's a fun evening.
Bambi.
So my brilliant choice, sir. So let me add that to our board. The Unknown Soldier. My fourth one for foreign speaking films is I had to have a Danish film in here because I'm half Danish. My father was Danish. My father was a runner for the Danish resistance, as were his 3 other brothers. And they actually rescued some British airmen who they helped smuggle over. They were all a family of fishermen as well. So they helped smuggle them over to Sweden. And they hid them from the SS when they came into the town. So I was always very interested in anything to do with the Danish resistance. And there's a lovely little film about 2 sort of quite notorious characters. Unfortunately, when I saw the film, my father was still alive. And the first thing I said to him was, "Have you heard of Flame and Citron?" Because I just saw this movie about them. And he said straight away, "Yeah, no, they were like, national heroes." And he talked about them with great affection. And he was like, "They've made a movie about them?" And I was like, yeah. And he was in a home by the time I'd seen this. So I was never able to get him to see the film, which is a real shame, but he would have loved it. So a bit of a shout out to my late father there. But it's a really well made film. It's got a pretty, if it's got a small budget, they certainly made it go a long way. And I really do. I like it. Excuse me for dipping out of camera there. I like it when these films have good production value, and you've got your characters in the foreground. There's another film on my list I'll talk about that's exceptionally good at doing this, and behind them there's something, and then behind them there's a period jeep going past, and then behind them there's 2 extras in costume having a conversation, and then behind that there's a flat gun in the background, and people are really good at doing that, especially in the European films, and this one is one that does it really well. So it's Flame and Citron for anyone in the chat. You might find it under the title The Nazi Assassins. It's probably got a really, cover with lots of explosions and tanks and things like these films often do when they're released on DVD. Somebody at marketing says, put a tank on the cover, it'll sell another 5,000 units. And that's true. That's why they do that, And I don't know if you remember this back in the days when we kept seeing these war films turn up in the top 10 DVDs in Tesco's and things in like the early 2000s, but it was the same two British artists were doing all the covers.
Yeah, you can tell.
You can so tell.
Yeah,
I used to going to film fairs or military fairs and buying the big box VHS war films. It was never photos; it was always posters, but not the original movie posters. And it was a complete gamble buying it because you look on the back and you think, "There's no one in this I've heard of." And there are these spaghetti war films. And sometimes you just go, oh my God, like the Battle of the Last Panzer. Or the other times you'd buy gold and it'd be fantastic. But it was a complete gamble. You had no idea what you're buying.
You mean the Battle of the Last Panzer isn't your number one pick?
Spoiler alert, no. I nearly put it in there. But
is that the one, the Sven Hassel one that's like based on one of his books? Is that one?
That's Wheels of Terror.
No, Wheels of Terror, that's the one.
Reed and David Carradine's in it as well.
Cameo from David Carradine and Oliver Reed, who turned up clearly for like a $200,000 paycheck for one.
I was getting confused there. Yeah.
With some weird 1970s SPG meant to be a Tiger tank or something, isn't it?
Yeah. They've got a couple of Eastern European knockoff assault gun things.
Yeah, it's awful. Let's not go down that one.
I can't wait to do that on FOF. It'd be fun.
I'm there for episode if you want me. So, Paul, what's your number 3 English language pick?
I struggled. The first two positions fell into position quite easy. Number 3 was difficult. I've gone for the Victors.
Punch up for the third position.
The Victors, 1963, Carl Foreman.
The Victors.
My other choice for that was the story of G.I. Joe was possibly going to go in at number 3.
Fabulous.
But I went for the Victors, and the reason simply is it's the only classic war film that's really told from the point of view of women. Not that I'm I am a bit of a feminist, but it is. Yeah, you got your George Peppard and Eli Wallach and George Hamilton and stuff are in it, and it's very affecting some of the scenes there. And this is the same Carl Foreman who made Guns of Navarone 2 years earlier, so he knew how to do the Hollywood blow stuff up kind of stuff, and he goes all kind of in the other direction with the Victors. And the strong, Santa Berger and Jan Moreau and all those people. It's just it's an episodic kind of film that takes you kind of following a group of GIs through the Sicilian Italian campaign, but they're also in England, and it ends up after liberation. There's an encounter with a Russian soldier, bizarrely played by Albert Finney, and everyone who's seen it will remember there's one particular scene where playing over the soundtrack is "I'm Dreaming of a White Christmas," or no, White Christmas for the Bing Crosby version, and it's the shooting of the only deserter from the American Army. The what's his name? There was a film with Martin Sheen about him, Eddie Slovic. Although you don't have him named in the film, and he's being shot at dawn by a firing squad in the snow, and I'm not doing it justice describing it, but The Victors is one of those films that will stay with you after you've watched it. Most war films, a lot of them you watch, you go, that was good, and then 2 minutes later you're having a hot dog and you've forgotten it, And the affecting ones are ones that you're thinking about later on. The Victors, to me, are unsung. It's started to appear again. I've noticed it's on those sort of satellite channels and stuff now, and it's available on DVD for the first time, and it's black and white, and just it's in my favorite films.
It's Elk Summer was in it as well.
Yeah.
Good to see Scandinavia being represented. And Rosanna Schifino,
and Romy Schneider, and it's just I think it's really good. But it's not what you're expecting. It's not a classic Hollywood men on a mission kind of movie. It's very. I don't even know. It's not a completely successful because you're not quite sure what he's trying to say with it. I don't think if we could interview Carl Foreman and the team, they'd say they quite accomplished what they were supposed to. But to me, it was trying something different. You got to think the 60s was a slew of just hit. It's the era of 633 Squadron and Devil's Brigade and everything's just pile them high, sell them, make it big, and Victor's tries something different. It's more of a 50s movie in the 60s in a weird way. Anyway,
definitely got a soft spot for Devil's Brigade. Still got a nice audience watching. For those guys watching, thank you so much for tuning in. Cliff Derlin's still with us, also shouting out about Flame and Citron as a good movie. So it certainly is.
Movie.
David Kay, Private Slovak, Darren Little also liking Flame and Citron. Fantastic, Paul. Do you know what? It's great. I've already got like 3 or 4 films I've got to rewatch, and one that I haven't seen at all.
Right.
So this is proving very beneficial. So Robbie, what you got for number 3, English language?
So originally, obviously, I mean, earlier, me and Woody clashed. My number 3 was Sea of Sand, but I'll quickly whip in a third.
That's all right. We can keep it in there, and then we can skip on.
I'll whip in a third because Woody just mentioned it, and I would have whipped it in as a standby. But Ernie Pyle, The Story of G.I. Joe, is just a fantastic war film, also directed by William Wellman of Battleground fame. And it's Burgess Meredith doing the most uncanniest one-on-one almost characterization of Ernie Pyle, the war correspondent. And it's a different type of war film. It's sort of told from the perspective of Ernie Pyle, but then it's also just more about the regular troops. Robert Mitchum plays this hard sergeant NCO type character. It's one of his earliest roles. He actually gets his only Oscar nomination for it as well, for Best Supporting Actor in 1946, I believe. But the film is important because it was shot only a couple of months after Ernie Pyle had been killed on a small island off of Okinawa. And it's just such a powerful film. And if you're not into Ernie Pyle's read of his writings, it's some of the best writing of the Second World War, in my opinion. I think he's one of the best war correspondents of all time. Absolutely adore his works. It's what got me back into the Second World War, learning about it through his words. But it's just one of those really special films. Uses Ernie Pyle's work. It's just fantastic. I'm sure Woody echoes my thoughts as well.
Yeah, definitely. And so it nearly made my top 5. And yeah, and it's because we think of, when you said Robert Mitchum, his early role, he was more brought in as a war veteran in a sense, rather than it's Robert Mitchum. He was brought in because he'd been in theatre, in theatre meaning in
natural
the
fighting.
war.
Yeah,
he wasn't in Rep, darling.
And so it's he wasn't in Rep, along with with wearing a cravat, along with all the, but no, it's a great film, and good choice. And I've been just really good choices so far. I mean, with the people I'm on with, it was always going to be good choices, but it's been really good choices.
Scott Grimwood saying
you'll love my next one then.
He's got all of his books. And Cliff Derlin also agreeing. I think Paul's just brought his fan club with him. They're all in the stands there waiting.
That's it. That is my. I've only got these people. They're
well, that's all right. You're very welcome to the guys.
Yeah.
Don't forget to subscribe and like, as they say.
Yeah. Woody's bought his firm
To our channel as well.
My boys.
Yeah,
but I'm sure
they've all got the hats on.
Matt, what you got for your number? What's your number 3?
Number 3 is Where Eagles Dare.
Yes, what a choice.
Someone had to say
it had to be in the list somewhere. It's the quintessential men on a mission movie, and the amount of rounds that go downrange in that film are just incredible.
Yeah,
the best double-handed MP40 firing sequence in film history, possibly the only.
To my mind, Lance, the only MP40 dual-wielding scene.
The only one that's worth talking about. Yeah,
exactly.
And you can see the strain on his face when he's firing the guns, because they're heavy, those things.
Yeah, they're not light.
Even a lightweight blank firing one, if they've scaled it down, and I don't know how much lighter you can make it. I tried firing 2 of them like that. Oh man, it didn't look anything like when Clint Eastwood did it. I'll tell you that.
No, he's just money in that film. And Burton's fantastic in it. There's that iconic sequence of them all sat around the table by the fire, and it's just such a great
scene.
Switcheroo.
Yeah, I think that was the first time I saw a twist in the movie. Because I watched that really young. It was like one of those coming this holiday season. It was one of them, and you had like 6 movies that were on there.
It's one of those Christmas movies. It's a bank holiday movie in Britain, isn't it? And like Zulu, which is another favorite for that kind of that nostalgia. But yeah, War Eagle's Day is amazing, and there's so much in it that's of interest. You got two great, strong female characters. You've got
Mary
really,
wasn't it? Mary Ure?
and Ingrid Pitt.
Ingrid Pitt.
Yeah.
You know, and she's out the back window giving it large with an MP40 as well, which again wasn't
great.
Particularly common in war movies of the period. You didn't see women in action much, and that's always cool. So yeah, that's one of my absolute favorites, and that's number 3 for me.
I've got to echo that, and it was nearly in my top 5, and
nearly in my 5.
I probably like it just above Kelly's Heroes.
Yes, I agree with that. Yeah, I love Kelly's Heroes, but War Eagle's Day just tips it a little bit because it's.
I know.
Well, my favourite actor of all time is Richard Burton, so I'm a little bit biased because I'm in the Burton camp. I got to love Oddball as well, though, and bless him, Donald Sutherland, still going strong, still doing.
Burton's just cool as hell in that film, though. So
and I think the War Eagle's Day, it's also the story of the making of it would make a movie, wouldn't it? I mean, and when Richard Burton is going up the wall, he was brought up on the lift, but Eastwood has to climb, and you can and all those kind of jokes. I mean, and name dropping. I spent a very good evening in a pub in London with Ingrid Pitt years ago after a film fest where she was telling all the stories. I've still got in a photo album of. She signed a photo of her and she gave me Clint Eastwood's address to send it to him, and he sent it back. So I've got a photo of the two of them signed by.
How sweet is that?
And she was great because then, of course, you know, she was telling movie stories. Then she's talking about the fact that whatever was 7 years old, her and her mother escaped from the whichever camp it was. I forget which. I don't think it was Auschwitz, Dachau possibly. But you know, there's a woman who'd actually been as a young kid involved in the end of the horrible side of World War II, and then ends up making the classic popcorn World War II movie. And I don't mean that in a negative way.
No. And she's also done the best girl-on-girl bitch fight in a movie ever, in my view, which was her fighting it out with Lewis's Collins' wife, who's
Who Dares Wins.
Rosalind Lloyd. Who Dares Wins. It's and Rosalind Lloyd is the daughter of Ewan Lloyd, the producer of Wild Geese, who called me at home once on my landline, and I thought it was a prank, and I hung up on him. True story. He called me at home, and I thought this friend of mine who was in Band of Brothers, the guy that blows up the tank in Band of Brothers with the bazooka, Stephen Walters, he's a Liverpudlian actor, was always calling me at home, putting on silly voices, and it was like, "Is Mr. Lance Nielsen there, please?" And I went, "Yeah, no, sorry, he's not at home. Is this Mr. Walters by any chance?" And I was greeted by deathly silence. I thought, "Oh, you fucking sod." And I just hung up the phone. 5 minutes later, this person called back and went, "Is Mr. Lance Nielsen there, please?" Sounding really angry. And I went, "This isn't Stephen. Who is this? Ewan Lloyd here." So that was when I offered to write the script for Wild Geese 3.
Amazing.
It was in production, and I got in.
Now there's a rabbit hole.
There's a rabbit hole, yeah.
But we'll save that for another show, mate. Great choice. I love that film. I feel like I'm going to need to watch it again tomorrow, even though I only saw it 6 months ago. I can only go for so long without watching Where Eagles Dare. So that's it's mine, I believe. Then my number 3 choice, Tora. Now I did say that if it was a multi-studio production, as we know, this is a co-production from Hollywood and Japan. I didn't know anything about Pearl Harbor until I saw Tora. Well, I was probably about 5, 6, and that was of that era where, as a kid, if you started watching a movie, you were expecting either the Americans or the British to win. And this was the first film where I started watching it, and I was like, when's the bit when we win? What's happening? And then I realized this actually is a true story. Now I've got the extended version, which has got all the Japanese scenes that were cut, that were in the original Japanese release. You can get all of those in the Blu-ray for anyone who's watching at home. It's a really good cut of the film. I think the extra Japanese scenes add a lot to the movie. I'm sure most people have seen it, so I don't want to talk about it too much. One thing I would love to see in my lifetime, I might even do it myself, is I would like a really good editor to take all the action shots that are good from Pearl Harbor and re-edit them into an edit of Tora. None of the actors, just some of the big budget effect shots that Tora couldn't quite do. But the miniature work in this film is absolutely superb, and that's actually one of the things I do.
Yeah,
really
we talked about
like
on a
about
Pearl
that.
Harbor special on Woodage's channel a couple of months ago.
Yeah, Woody put us through the ringer and made us
and I
watch
think-
loads of Pearl Harbor movies. Yeah.
Oh yeah, well, there's quite a
and
few
I
of them.
think, I
There's
think we all
more.
came to a consensus that it's the best of the bunch.
Yes.
It is.
Yeah, I mean, you know, and I like the fact, I like the big cast, I like the multiple perspectives. I love the scene where the bullet comes up to the window, and apparently that was a true story. And Admiral Kimmel says that, you know, if it had killed me, it would have been a mercy killing. And it's just a great telling of all the things that went wrong. Still really watchable now. Just love all the practical effects and some weirdly funny moments, like take that guy's number, Dick. I'm going to have him written up. But you know, just the first line of the battle kind of thing. But yeah, I really, really like it. So there's some editors out there. Go and edit that version with some of the shots from Pearl Harbor. I'd like to see that. Maybe some of the shots from Midway, which unnecessarily retold Pearl Harbor, in my opinion. We didn't need to see Pearl Harbor again at the beginning of the Midway.
There's another thing we said on that live, actually.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't mind the Midway movie, but the first half an hour of it could be much better spent
Midway,
on the Battle of Midway.
Gives it away. It's a mid movie, isn't it? Mid.
Yeah, we
parlance,
didn't need all that other stuff. Okay, great. So we're on to our foreign language picks. Number 3, Paul.
Talvisota, The Winter War. So, like Matt, I've gone for a Finnish film, 1989, and it gets referred to in Finland as the Saving Private Ryan of Finland. It is, which I can, although it's a different era in the sense that it's portraying the early part of the war, but it's that kind of definitive Finnish film. And there's a couple of versions of it. There's a shorter version, a longer version. I finally got the longer version on Blu-ray a couple of years ago, and you can maybe describe it as a band of brothers almost in Finland, because you get to know the people first, then the attack comes. But the thing is that sets it apart is the quality of the gear and the tanks and the weaponry and the aircraft. I believe it's still the most expensive Finnish film ever made. It certainly was for a long time.
There's a scene in that where there's a stug taking out other stugs, isn't there? Or am I mistaken? Or was that 1944? I'm thinking of, because there's another.
That's 1944.
That's
the other Finnish, the other Finnish one.
But
which is bad. That's not quite the same level, but it's quite good.
No, it's quite a good movie.
I mean, Talvisota, when people ask me to kind of, you know, when you're trying to impress someone, what's your favorite movie? You kind of want to say Zulu and Where Eagles Dare, but I always throw that one in to make me look a bit more learned. That I've got, but it genuinely is one of those movies I return to, and it's, you know, the Winter War. You know, that there's so on a historical side of things that the role of Finland in World War II is ignored by lots of people, and there was a lot of political repercussions. It influences the way the Red Army changes their tactics, the German army. That campaign had its. I mean, Talvisota, the film is specifically from the Finnish point of view, but there's this worldview that we should understand that war had an impact way beyond its own confines there. And so, great film, but I think we should move on from that because we're going to be all night.
It is a really good movie. One that I thoroughly recommend. I'm going to chuck the link for it in the chat. I haven't been doing all of them. Sorry, guys, but I will. I need an assistant. You see, that's what it is. But I'll chuck. That was made in 1989, wasn't it, Paul? Yeah. And I would like to see the longer cut of that. I might have to nip round and borrow your Blu-ray.
Yeah, I think the short version is 2 hours. The long version is 3.25 or something, or 3.5. So it's nearly double in length. Effect. So it's not much more combat. It's more of the exposition.
No, it's the character investment. But I quite like that, because the one thing for the film that did let it down for me was when you meet everybody and they're all in military and they're in the snow and everyone's caked in mud, everybody looks the bloody same.
No, you get much more. You get to know who everybody is.
And that is important, because then you feel the loss when people start dropping. You know, because I remember in the trailer there's a shot of a funeral with Finnish flags draped over all the coffins. That's not in the 2-hour release, that scene, but I'm assuming it's in the
definitely
longer one that you're talking about. So, Robbie, what you got? Number 3.
My number 3.
What you doing? Where did you come from? Cilla Black used to say.
My number 3 is 2004's Downfall. I mean, you can't.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think you can
Downfall
have it on
is also on my list.
fantastic.
Um,
It's Oliver Hirsch Beagle. I think that's how you say it. Directed that one.
To speed things up, I'm going to say where it is. It's my number one.
Fair enough.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean,
It is a great film. It captures that whole atmosphere of what you might imagine it would have been like. Because there's been a couple of films that tried to do that. There's one with Alec Guinness and there's one with Anthony Hopkins.
Yeah.
But this was
they're both good, but they don't quite get that really like claustrophobic crime. Like,
there's surrealist elements as well that
and this was the first time you really felt like you were watching Hitler, I think.
Bruno Ganz,
transformative Bruno Ganz. I mean, it's, I think for me, it's the sequence where they're burning everything. Yeah, it's almost like a dream. I mean, that is fantastic. And the guy that played Goebbels, I mean, wow.
Yeah, he's a creepy looking actor. I've seen him in a couple of other things.
He was in Hitler in that recent one, wasn't he?
That's it.
He was Hitler in Munich.
He
played
a friend
Hitler
of mine.
in Munich.
We watched it at school. I always remember it's funny at the time, but looking back, it's probably not. But he got kicked out and had to have a Saturday detention because he went, Ryan Giggs fell on hard times here because he thought the guy looked like Ryan Giggs. And we were all in hysterics, but our history teacher really didn't like that.
I'm not going to see that now. Thanks, Robbie.
I know, because I've had to suffer that. So every time I see that guy,
season
Ryan
doesn't
Giggs
quite have the same essence.
So,
to it,
Ryan Giggs, if you're watching and you want to bring any legal action, I'll give you Fighting on Films email and contact addresses.
Crikey.
No, it is.
He's got enough legal issues at the moment.
I don't think he's gonna just sue Robbie for saying he looks a little bit like the actor who played Goebbels. I think that's
the thing that amazed me when that's another film I saw in the cinema, and I was adamant I was going to go and see it, and it had quite a decent release in London. It was on for a good 4 weeks, and I was there like opening night. It was packed out. It was a great suspense movie, but I loved the storyline with the girl in the Hitler Youth and the boy, and it was just you didn't even need to have that in the film; it still would have been great. But the fact that they did have that
the
extra layer
scenes really add something to it.
Yeah, this is what this guy has done to this generation, and now they're going to have to pay for his evil doings. And of course, they end up, I don't want too many spoilers because I'm sure there are some people that probably haven't seen it. It's just
Hitler dies at the end,
and it was filmed in Leningrad. It was filmed in St. Petersburg.
I didn't know that.
All the street scenes were all filmed in the warehouse district of St. Petersburg because they've got those lovely big long square buildings that you used to have in Berlin, and apparently. Some of the German architects who did the stuff in Berlin in the 20s and 30s ended up doing designs in St. Petersburg, and this is in an area of Leningrad, presumably that wasn't bombed completely to shit. So that whole big long street scene. It's not a set. It's a street in. I'm
just wondering how much they could have charged wealthy Russians to watch Hitler's death scene. You can watch Hitler's death scene being filmed. It'll cost you 1 million.
I think the interior of the bunker set might have been in Germany, but I'm not
parts
sure
of it filmed in Germany, I think, because I remember seeing on a special feature they asked the people to turn their lights off, and everyone was really happy to oblige and things like that.
And that bunker set as well was it was like a real 3D labyrinth that they built where they could remove sections of the wall and then just set the camera up and close those sections up again. So it was quite a claustrophobic set, and I no doubt that helped.
It was nominated for Best Foreign Feature, the 77th Oscars, I think.
Yeah, and I don't know if it won, but and Bruno Ganz was nominated as well. And
he was.
I quite frankly, Bruno Ganz should have got Best Actor at the Oscars that year. I don't think anybody did a better performance than he did.
I think you're right there.
So and he's passed away now, I believe.
Yeah,
sadly so. But we only needed to see him play Hitler once to be fair. But so okay, that was a great choice. Also on my list, which speeds things up a bit. So Matt, what was your number 3 foreign film?
Number 3 is Die Brücke, The Bridge.
Which version?
Now, do you mean the original or the remake?
The original.
That was, like 52 or something. It was early 50s.
Yeah. Yeah, the original. 59, I think it is.
Solid choice.
Yeah,
Good.
that's such an interesting film. Just shows the absolute futility at the end of that war, and
One of the only
innocent
few
people being
Volkstone
dragged into it.
films.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
Yeah, great film. And if anyone hasn't seen it, just go and watch it because it's such an interesting film. It really is. And there's some great little set pieces, and the characterizations are fantastic.
Have you seen the remake?
I haven't seen the remake.
No, I haven't either.
Don't bother.
No,
not worth it.
It improves some of the aesthetics and some of the equipment and stuff is a bit better, but it doesn't make anything. The characterization is worse. It tries too hard.
Right.
Covered by one of the aforementioned British artists.
That's appalling.
About in the early
awful.
2000 Tesco Sainsbury's.
I didn't know the
10
Americans were holding the bridge.
Yeah, well, I mean, and it's funny because it's so obviously German actors all playing the Americans in the remake, and you occasionally just hear some dubbed American voices sort of thrown on. I didn't hate the remake. I'm gonna go against Paul for the first time on the show. I quite enjoyed it. I did see the original, but I saw it when I was very young. So maybe if I'd seen the original more recently and then seen the remake, but because when I was watching the remake, I was thinking, I'm sure I've seen this film before, and I realized it was the original. The original was available on YouTube, the whole thing. So if people want to have a quick search, Die Brücke, I think you will find it on there because I think it's past copyright and it's available. The thing that impressed me about the remake was I thought the quality, the acting and the cast were really first rate. The kids, I really liked them. And for me, that's why I got invested.
I haven't seen it, so I couldn't, but I mean,
I don't
the
think
original cast.
I wouldn't say don't bother. I'd say, if you're at a loose end and you can get hold of a copy, or you're swinging by Turnpike Lane, let me know. And,
I mean, it's always worth comparing how they change.
Oh yeah, I always find remakes really interesting. Like the Sahara. Sahara is like an interesting one for when it comes to remakes.
Belushi.
Like the All Quiet on the Western Front. There's going to be a Netflix version. There's probably been like 4 versions of that movie now, but it's still worth seeing the new one. Yeah.
Every generation's got
we're
a
getting
crack.
there. We're our number 2 pick, English language. I'm going to ask Paul what his is, and also dive to the toilet simultaneously. Paul, what's your choice?
The Great Escape. Yeah.
Oh, you know what? I don't know how I missed putting that on my list. That's such a good film.
I mean, I've done it. I've devoted. I mean, Matt and Robbie were both on a show I did about it. I did a week about the historical event, and it's specifically, you said, favorite film, and it is a film I watch every time. I've got the new Criterion edition Blu-ray with and that is a 4000K version now, which I haven't got a TV to watch that, but I just love it, and I think it's reverent to the real history without being
every piece of grass is. Steve McQueen makes that jump.
Yeah, and even though I know those silly bits, that scene is silly, it's not silly. It does what movies should do. Movies should take you out of real life. They should be escapism, and an escape movie is escapism, and yet it does that, and it doesn't disrespect the murder of the 50. It doesn't. It does deal with the tragedy of it in a tasteful way, and it's just some of the best performances. I mean, Charles Bronson basically slept walk his way through the 70s and 80s pretty much, but he's really effective in that as a claustrophobic choir, and David McCallum is good, and Richard Attenborough is good, and James Garner, who wasn't the best, was good. It's just, that's it. I'm saying
they get everyone at their peak, don't they? It's everyone at their peak.
They all give their all in that. James Coburn, Australian accent aside, is good, and that's it. Everyone knows it. Let's move on to Robbie's choice because we all know.
One thing I'll say about that was one of the plays I wrote, which you won't have seen because it hasn't been on yet, is about the making of the Magnificent Seven. And towards the end of that, we have a scene where John Sturges is talking to the producers, and the reason he agreed to direct the Magnificent Seven is because they promised the Marachi brothers or Mersch brothers promised that they would back his war movie, and the war movie he's talking about is The Great Escape, and that's how so many of the cast from the Magnificent Seven ended up in The Great Escape, because John Sturges said to James Coburn, because that was James Coburn's breakthrough role, Jimmy, I think I've got a role for you in this next picture. And Bronson and some others all came along. And one thing I like about that film is it doesn't matter how many times you watch it, you always think maybe the next time you watch it, some more of the guys will get out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Some more of them will, you know.
I always think
I always forget when David McCallum gets shot, and then I suddenly remember just before it's happening, I'm going, oh no, this is when the Invisible Man gets killed. So
I always think intelligence is going to ignore the German and just like wander off and escape.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think he's going to be like, thanks. And every time I'm like, why did you do that? No, you know.
It's, well, great choice, Paul. Let's jump on to Robbie's number 2. What you got?
My number 2 is 1959's Yesterday's Enemy.
On my bingo card.
Yeah, I adore this one. We did it on Fighting on Film this week. It's our
latest
brand new episode. Yeah, directed by Val Guest. It's a Hammer production. A lot of people don't realize that Hammer did make non-horror movies as well. And it's a moral, it's a moral tale about warfare and about leadership and what lengths you'll go to do what you think's right.
Super choice.
And I also think it's Stanley Baker's best work. I don't think Zulu is his best. I think this is Baker's best, and it's such a fantastic war film. You'd have no idea it was shot on a soundstage.
It's amazing. I've seen this.
It's fabulous.
Leo McKern and Gordon Jackson are both.
My next film. This is the movie I would watch if you want a representation of British. It goes against the grain, shall we say, of the way the British are represented in 50s war movies, because there's British war crimes, there's officers who aren't acting like stiff upper lip officers, and there's civilian characters who get to voice the opinion of civilians back home through a war correspondent and through a padre that you don't normally get in 50s war movies. It's always the establishment are represented, when in this movie, the establishment and the civilians are both represented, and they all have something to say. And the ending isn't what you're expecting either. I won't spoil anything, but it's just a fabulous film, and I'd seek it out.
Yesterday's Enemy. That's another one I saw a very long time ago that I'm gonna have to.
Brilliant film. Nearly made my list, and it didn't because I knew you'd pick it.
I love it. Yeah,
Matt, what's your number 2?
My number 2 is 9 Men, and that's a 1943 British war film that looks at a section of men that are on a patrol and it's kind of like Sahara but better. It's a section of men that get pinned down in a hut in the desert in North Africa, and it's a cracking little film. Ealing Studios made, filmed in Glamorgan of all places, standing in for North Africa.
Shot during the war.
Shot during the war. Directed by Harry Watt. Lovely little cast, including Gordon Jackson, and you've got Jack Lambert, who plays a fantastic NCO in it.
So a lot of 3 have had him in. Yeah.
His character is listed as the young'un, so he probably was very young.
I think it's actually his first or second.
I think it's his third credit.
It would have been 20. He would have been 20 when he filmed it.
But it's such a great little film. We stumbled across it a few months back, and we did a show on it because it was that interesting to us. And it's really hard to find. It's out there on the internet if you do enough Googling.
There's a DVD as well. That's quite cheap to get.
I was about to say there's a DVD that we picked up a copy of as well, and it has all those great little characterizations of men in a section or a platoon, but then it's a depiction of British troops that isn't.
They don't have an officer, do they?
Well, it's not gimmicked by the fact that it's a long range desert patrol, or it's it's paras, or it's this, like it's just normal infantrymen in North Africa, and lots of great little things like Italian armored cars pop up, and the enemy's Italian, which is rare. Italians aren't normally the antagonist in the majority of war movies of the period. So that's really interesting too. And there's lots of little things that go to it, and it just feels very authentic. It's a great little movie.
And there's Crusader Mark II's at the end, and it's it's just amazing to see them.
Great stuff. So I think that's all of our second. Oh, I've got to do my one. I mean, we won't need to talk about it, but I'm sorry, it has to be on my list. The Longest Day is my number 2, and again, it is.
I wouldn't even make my top 10. I hate to say.
Well,
I can't believe it.
One of the reasons it's on there is because I've got to tell you that was the film that got me interested in history. I saw that before Tora, and that was the film that got me interested in the D-Day landings. That coincided with my grandfather buying me a book on D-Day because I was so enthused in this movie, and I didn't know anything about Normandy or D-Day, or the names of the beaches. So it lit a fire under me. So it's got to be on there because, and I'm quite happy to rewatch it. I like the fact that a lot of it was shot at actual locations. It's quite funny listening to Ken Anakin describe himself walking onto Ouistreham, then being the set of the casino, where the reality was that was filmed in Port-en-Bassin in the car park. But he, that's back then. He didn't know his geography. He just arrived in
nothing
France,
like that.
and you go to Port-en-Bassin and you turn around.
The shot of that, I mean, gosh,
that aerial shot is phenomenal.
Yeah, there's so many sequences in it that are so good. The attack on Pegasus Bridge, some of the model work and stuff doesn't stand up that well, but and what a phenomenal cast. It's just that big old massive cast. The D-Day landing scenes, the Pips Pillar and flying over.
It's got a Piet in it for one.
Well, there you go. So I mean,
what more do you want from a film?
Yeah, Robbie said I had to have at least one film with a Piet in it.
You did, yeah. It's a prerequisite. Matt's book available from all good bookstores.
All right, so we're on to.
Have you written the book on the Piet, Matt?
No, we've never mentioned it, mate.
Have you done a 5-hour episode on a Piet?
I might have
done it. He's got it there. He's got it there.
So very quickly we're going to move on to our foreign language pick number 2. I've already got my number 1. Paul, what's yours after Winter War?
It is a French film because I live there. Un condamné à mort s'est échappé. A man escaped.
Can you give me the English title for that, please?
A Man Escaped.
Oh, there you go.
Robert Bresson film. It's 1956 French language film, and it's like a documentary drama, and it's about a guy in the resistance who escapes from the Montluc prison in Lyon. And it's very mundane. It talks about, it's like lots of shots of him kind of sharpening a spoon to pick a lock, and how he makes the ropes to get out of the cell. And it's just Robert Bresson is a incredibly important French director, and I wanted to pick a French film because I live here and I love what France says in some of its war films. And I think A Man Escaped is just really good, and black and white, and it's the antithesis to The Great Escape, in the sense that The Great Escape is an escape film. It's all action and there's motorbikes and aircraft. Man Escaped is and there's no the ending. They do escape is sort of anticlimactic because it's just like, oh, well, we're out there.
I've ruined it now. You've ruined it.
But it's obvious. It's called A Man Escaped. It's
of course.
Trying to escape. It's not a man. But it's great. And the actor who plays the lead character wasn't really a kind of a professional actor as such. And it's a true story. I should mention a real guy called André Devigny who was the real escaper. And it's just, I think it's good. I think it's.
I've seen this. I've seen this film
again and again and again.
Yeah, I've seen this film. I recognise the images. Again, probably seen a very long time ago on BBC Two when it was shown at 4:00 on a Sunday in 1975 or something. But great. Okay, IMDb for that one's in the chat, people. Fantastic. So moving on, Robbie, your fourth foreign language pick.
Yeah, Stalingrad, 1993.
That was very nearly on my list. That was in my top 10.
Joseph Vibmatter, I think I might be saying that wrong, directed it, but it's just so bleak. Yeah, and I just can't get over how beautiful some of those shots are as well. When they're walking back in the snow, and then unfortunately
they have to carry the gun. They have to carry the gun.
It's one of the greatest anti-war movies I've ever seen. You don't want to fight. You don't want to see war even happen after you've seen this movie. And as I said earlier, it's one of those movies where Das Boot's doing it as well, where it's showing a different side to what we think of the Germans being in the war, because you can feel for a besieged troops that get encircled and there's no way out, and oh my god, isn't it awful? Not only is it cold, but they've got to fight tanks and there's not enough anti-armor and things like that, and they've got to fight in Rattenkrieg is bred out of Stalingrad. The rat warfare. It's just one of those films. But the thing that did it for me, it's the production values are outstanding. The 4K resolution version that has been put out in the last couple of years is top notch. You wouldn't think this movie was made in '93.
Oh, I bet you can smell them on the 4K.
Do you have the British language dubbed version? Hey, Rollo! Remember that version that came out? Oh my god!
Yeah. I watched the German version of it, but for me, it's that end sequence of the two chaps just getting enveloped by snow. It's so powerful. He's talking to his friend about the desert and saying what it was like there, and then they peacefully die. It's so striking, and I really, really enjoyed it. And again, it's one of those. I watched it in my early teens when I was doing film studies at school, because I wanted to be cool and be like, I've seen German films.
I saw it at the cinema.
This is one of them.
I saw the Stalingrad and Downfall both at Curzon Screen One West End. Thank God for the Curzon cinema, because it was the only one back then that showed those kinds of films. There's the two versions of it on DVD. When it first came out, you could that's the second release. You could only get the dubbed version. And when I bought this from, I think it was Virgin Megastore, if you can remember that far back.
Yeah, I think I
got home and I put it on because I'd seen it in the cinema with subtitles, and suddenly there's these horrendous dub. I can watch it. It was like I watched 5 minutes of it. Oh, I can't watch this. This is awful. And the voices were just bad as well. They just weren't terrible choices.
That's the first one I saw.
Yeah,
and that sequence where they're fighting the T-34s is really well done as well.
Yeah, you really feel for them. That's a nightmare.
One of the most memorable scenes for me was when they discover the warehouse full of all the bread and food that the guy's been, the quartermaster has been hoarding, and it's kind of like hoarding for what? Everybody's fucking dead now, and it's just like floor to ceiling with all this fresh bread that he's cooked, and apparently I read that's in one of the Stalingrad books that I read, and we could talk about Stalingrad books. That's another rabbit hole. Fantastic choice, another great choice again. Matt, what's your number 4 foreign language?
Number 2 for me would be Westerplatte. Westerplatte Resists, 1967.
I've got that.
And that's just such a really interesting film, and gives a Polish perspective of the war that isn't either the Warsaw Ghetto, Warsaw Uprisings, or the Polish pilots. It gives you a perspective of the war as it began, and it's just really well shot as well. Very effectively shot, beautifully cast. Just a really interesting film. And then when you contextualize that within the Iron Curtain and communist Poland, it all gets even more interesting. And
is that the same movie?
Yes, I think so.
Is that the remake?
That's the remake, I think.
That's the remake.
Right.
And
okay,
the remake isn't bad. The remake isn't bad.
I really like this film. Again, it embraces all the.
A lot of it shot almost with the remake. I thought there's lots of little.
I think I always think of the remake when I think of the movie. So maybe
it's you're right. It's part of the battle for Poland that you just don't get to see, and that whole weird thing of how there's a German ship sitting in the harbour and stuff like that.
I have a feeling, just to be the geek, that the original is actually a remake. I think there was a late 40s version.
Was there?
And then 60s version, and then the recent versions. I think.
Someone's going to bring out a triple DVD box set because you said that now, Paul.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I'd be released
the Westerplatte trilogy on DVD.
Yeah, your voice. And I have to say again, the choices of all of you. There's Longest Day caused I mean, I love The Longest Day, but I don't love The Longest Day because it's my backyard and it's so much of it is wrong. But that was the only one that I was like, oh. But everything else.
Yeah, hang on, man. I got to put it in there because otherwise, if it weren't for that film, I don't think I'd have the interest I have now.
It comes under
give it its due.
Isn't it? It's
And I
favorite,
still,
not
I
best.
still like
Yeah.
watching it now, and it's just
Yeah.
the scale of it.
It's got
That's
that
one
atrocious-
film. Do you know what? That's one film I'd like to see a remake of, actually.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah,
or a
100%.
mini series. I'd be
Especially
quite
if they
happy
hire
to
me
see
as the historical advisor, and I'll bring Matt in for weapons.
that. Yeah. And me in for the
As long as I can sit in a
story.
ditch with a pier, I'll be happy.
Yeah.
So my number
Rob,
2 pick.
you can take out the patrol boat that comes up to Pegasus Bridge with the.
Oh
pier.
yes,
You
please.
can do
Thank
that.
you very much.
There you
Mate,
go.
you can do that in the film if we ever get to make that scene. Was in the script. It was in there.
Beautiful.
Was it? Oh my god!
Yeah,
I fucking need to
Corporal
see that. Sorry.
Godbold. Corporal Godbold did that.
Some-
I'll
Yes,
be
I
the
think
number
so,
2.
yeah.
I'll just pat you on the back and let you shoot the thing. It'll be brilliant.
So my number 2 pick, moving quickly on foreign language, was Black Book, which was directed by Paul Verhoeven. It's a Dutch true story, female perspective. Saw it in the cinema, Empire Screen 1. For my birthday.
I haven't seen that, but I've read up on it. It does sound really good.
Really well made, very high production values, a little bit Hollywood now and then, but on the whole. And this woman was a double agent, and she very nearly got lynched at the end of the war. Unfortunately, the right people stepped in and said no. She worked for us all along, but she ended up having a relationship with a German SS officer who went on to be executed. But it's a great film. Really, really high production values, as I say. So that's Black Book for anyone watching, and I am going to drop in the IMDb for that while we move on to the next. So we're on our final picks, basically. So Paul, while I'm getting the IMDb link for Black Book, what's your number 1 English language pick?
Controversial, because people might say it's not really a war film. And I nearly put 12 O'Clock High in. And that
As long as it's set between 38 and 45.
It's not going to be Escape to Victory, is it, Paul?
No, it's a matter of life and death.
Oh,
yes, yeah, no, give you that.
And
100%.
it's because, although it's a fantasy, and if you don't know the story, folks, it's David Niven as a pilot, and he's shot down, and then he has memory loss and brain problems, and he goes to heaven, and he has to defend his love of the WAF who brings him into land. I'm buggering up the plot there, but the point is, it's a fantasy, and it's black and white and color, 1945. Prowl and Pressburger, Say No More, Life and Death of Colonel Blimp, Red Shoes, and to me, the reason I love it, the enduring thing about it's a great story, but it's the fact that there's Indian pilots represented, there's WAF, there's free.
Yeah.
It completely for 1945, there is not a single thing that gets across the collaborative effort of us winning World War II. Every nation, every arm, every gender, every age is represented. Young Richard Attenborough is in heaven, and it's just
the scale of that scene is amazing.
Perfect movie. There's not one tiny thing in that movie I would change.
Yeah, and it's quite a brave movie for the time as well, because it's not, when it was made, it was right after the war, or on the cusp of the end of the war, right?
Yeah, it was being made when the war was
being shot, when the war
came out just after the day, I believe.
It's not as propaganda-y as you would think for a movie of that time.
It's a tale about morality and humanity.
Yeah,
it's why you fight, and what is humanity, and what is worth dying for. And it's one of those films that I appreciated it a lot as a younger person, and as I'm middle-aged now, I appreciate it in a different way. And I think I will keep appreciating it in different ways, because it does raise this issue of mortality and living your life fully, and what is worth dying for, and universal themes. And if you're going, as I do, I spend some of my time going professionally to cemeteries, seeing young people who died in the service of their countries, and matter of life and death somehow embodies some of that. Why are people fighting? What is worth dying for? And it's just absolutely magnificent, and I cannot say anymore. And if there's anyone who's watching this who has never seen A Matter of Life and Death, I can't imagine your joy when you first see it, because it's one that your life, folks, will divide into the era before you saw the film and the era after you saw the film. And just Kim Hunter as the American WAC is just fantastic, and people mostly know her as the ape in Planet of the Apes with Charlton Heston. She was a theater actress mostly, but she's beautiful in it. And Roger Livesey, oh my God, he's so fantastic in it. And the music is great, and the cutaways are great, and the fact that It cuts from the staircase. Oh my god!
Yeah, so much going for it, isn't there? It's like,
but I did wonder whether it really counts as a historic movie, but I think it does because it somehow encapsulates what World War II was about.
I mean, he's in a Lancaster bomber at the start, so I think it counts, doesn't it?
Yeah, and there's Americans and there's an American air base and stuff, isn't it?
Darren Little wholeheartedly agreeing. Is Darren Little the same as the actor Darren Little, Paul?
Darren Little has a relative in every campaign in World War II. Most of his family were commandos, and every time I do a show about the most obscure subject, one of his relatives was there fighting. Darren's family, I think, won the war on their own. We could always stay at home. It was.
Well, we'll have to get him. We'll have to get him on as a guest another time.
His wife's got COVID at the moment, I think. So I think Darren's had it. So best wishes to you, Darren.
Yeah, best wishes.
Oh, really? Oh, well, mate, two cups of ginger, crushed hot honey lemon. Have that, man. 6 times a day. You'll piss like a racehorse, but you'll be right rain in no time. That's how I got rid of my COVID. So it's
and vampires won't come near you.
So, Robbie, you kind of gave the game away because we know now that your number one pick is Escape to Victory. So tell us why you were so enamored with this Sylvester Stallone-led.
How dare you? How dare you? Woody's the Ipswich fan. It should be his.
What you got? What you got for your number one? Go on.
My top film is, and I couldn't even set foot in my childhood home if I didn't say this. It's 1953's The Cruel Sea.
What a great! I just watched that 7 days ago.
Isn't it just one of the greatest British war movies ever made? You know,
really
directed by Charles Friend. It's it's got a who's who of post-war British cinema.
Snorkers.
Jack Hawkins, Snorkers.
Jack Hawkins,
Donald
what
Sinden,
a voiceover.
Stanley Baker, Denholm Elliott, Virgin McKenna. The list goes on, and it's interesting because it's possibly one of the most accurate war movies that not that we just talked about tonight, of course, but because it's filmed at sea, it has actual corvettes. I've got them written down here. Saltash was played by HMS Porchester Castle, and HMS Coreopsis stands as the Compass Rose, and they're all Flower class corvettes. The Coreopsis was recommissioned out of the Greek Navy, I think, after being sold off post-war. It was mothballed. They rebuilt it. They almost drowned Donald Sinden as well when they shot it. And it's just one of the greatest films. It's one possibly, not only is it possibly one of the best British war movies, and it's possibly one of the best British movies, it's also possibly one of the best recreations of a book on screen. And if I haven't sold it and you haven't seen it, what the hell? It's it's just so good. Jack Hawkins is giving a performance of a lifetime.
I concur. It's a film I saw very late in life. I watched it for the first time when I bought it on DVD. I think it was on the telly at some point. During that period when I was a 9-year-old and watching a lot of James Bond, and went, "Oh, is that in black and white? I don't think I'm going to watch that." So,
my dad is its number one fan. He can quote it ad infinite, like every single scene. So I've seen it maybe 30 times, and whenever he's here, he'll say, "Can we watch The Cruel Sea, please, on your big TV?" And I'm like, "Yeah, fine." And I'll come in and I'll watch him and have a cup of tea in his hand, and he'll be just quoting it.
Mate, you got to bring your dad down the pub.
And it's the antithesis again, which has been my word of the evening, to Greyhound, the Tom Hanks film, which I kind of quite liked.
Oh, I quite like Greyhound.
How many U-boats did Tom Hanks sink on that one? Whereas the thing about The Cruel Sea, it goes back to the kind of the Sea of Sand idea, is that they don't really achieve.
They're just doing their job, aren't they?
They're doing their job. They haven't ended the war by we've come back with Hitler's head on a plate and we've sunk 17 U-boats before dinner. It's all they lose a ship, people get killed, and they do their job without having won the war, if that makes
and there isn't a bit where you hear a U-boat commander going, "Greyhound, we're coming for you." That film was good apart from that scene.
Yes, agreed.
It's just fabulous. It's just one of the best. And obviously the scene that is just that film is ingrained in my head is the scene where they have to depth charge men that are in the water.
Yeah, when there's the men in the water. I know.
That's morality, isn't it?
Beautifully shot again. And, it's just, It's
And
just
you
one of the
really
great,
see the
greatest
turmoil
British
on
war
the
films.
guy's face as well afterwards. It's so
Bloody
well.
Murderer. That's what I remember.
So Matt, what's your number one pick English language?
My number one pick was Theirs Is the Glory, which
Wow.
we've already touched on.
We've already talked about that.
Matt, no,
Yeah.
Robbie did.
Yeah, good stuff. That's fine. I'm glad you kept it in and didn't change it like Robbie did earlier, which is not allowed. So
Excuse me.
Well,
I
I
just wanted to mention
love that
Veritas
film
Marriage.
for all the reasons we discussed, and it's probably the best depiction of a pit on screen as well. So it has
anything
a lot
with a
going for
pit in it, obviously, you know.
Yeah.
So I know what to get you for your birthday. I think they make them.
Yeah, give me a
number
pit.
Lego.
That'd be great,
71.
thank
Is it number 71 in the weapon series, Matt, or something?
So
something like that. Yeah.
so we just got my English language pick. What do you think it is, Paul?
It's going to be a Midnight Clear.
Oh, do you know what? My friend Keith Gordon directed that.
I know, that's why I thought you were going to pick it.
No,
that's
no,
why I didn't pick it, because I
sorry
thought you
to
were going
be-
to pick it.
I'm sorry to be dreadfully predictable, but it's going to have to be a bridge too far.
Fair enough.
The Market Garden campaign is my biggest area of interest. I've got every board game on it ever known. I have a 1/32 scale Arnhem Bridge in my garden shed, including all the buildings.
Who doesn't?
around it. I'd put a picture up of it now if I had it to hand, and I'm really regretting that I don't. I've also got the entire campaign in 10 mil, which is tiny soldiers about so big. But again, this was another film where I started off watching it thinking, oh, this is going to be a massive success. I'd never heard of the operation ever because no one ever talked about it because it was such a huge embarrassment. But the thing I have to say about this film is for all the praise that it got, and it's interesting that none of us have picked Saving Private Ryan for our top 5, and we can talk about why on another episode because that's an hour conversation. Everybody was always going, Saving Private Ryan, it's the true depiction of war. This is what war is really like. And I'm like, Bridge Too Far did that like fucking 20 years before. What are you talking about? Because when William Goldman's being interviewed, he said, this was the one time I got to write a script where I could say that war sucks. And you see the cost of it. You know, who can forget the human barricade scene where the son gets shot, the Dutch resistance guy, and he picks him up and he carries over to the human blockade that they're making, and then he just lies down with him. I think I was proper traumatized when I saw that, and I must have been like 8 or 9 when I first watched it. I still have never seen it on the big screen. And the other thing about it as well is that there are a couple of different cuts that exist. And if you can find the second release VHS anywhere, which has a weird cover, there are about 4 scenes in it that you will never see in any other cut, including a sequence where a group of 82nd Airborne get lost in the streets trying to find Nijmegen. And one of them goes, maybe we can cut through here. And he opens a door and there's an MG42 behind it, and they all get massacred, and a load of them run round an alleyway, and that same armoured car that kills the resistance dad is in that alleyway, and it guns them all down. And I've seen it. I've seen that scene. My mate picked it up at a car boot sale, and we were watching it, and we'd both seen the film about 10 times, and suddenly we're seeing that, and I think there was about 5 other scenes. There was a lot of shots of 30 Corps going along roads that were not in the main cut, and it's just one of those weird things where somebody's offloaded a different print or something, and somehow it ended up, and he's now lost that VHS annoyingly, and that's the only copy of it I've ever found. So that's just a little.
We'll keep an eye out for that.
Yeah, I mean, because it does exist. I'm not making it up. And if you read the script, and I've read an original script, all those scenes are in there, so they are in. There's like shots when they're lost and they're trying to find their way. The British are lost and they cross a road and they head off, and that's all in the film with Connery. And then the camera pans down to the road, and all these German boots go past, just the boots. And again, that's not in the main cut, but it was in this cut. It's also in the script, but it just has so many. I mean, there are 2 of the best sequences in a war film ever shot, and this is the film director in me coming out. The Grabner's attack over the bridge, which they rehearsed in a car park, and of course they filmed at the bridge at Deventer with about 32 different vehicles. Not many originals, but a lot of conversions and things. So well done. And then, especially when you consider that they had to cut a block of flats out of it, which was it right in the way. And then, of course, the crossing of the river with the 82nd Airborne, which you probably all know this, was shot in reverse because of the currents. So and to get the bridge at the right angle in the background with not too many modernisms, they had to shoot it the other way. So they actually shot it on the other side of the bridge, and they're crossing from north to south in the film. And you can see blocks of flats in the background if you freeze frame the full.
Some great anecdotes. We did a show with some guys who were in the APA.
Yeah,
that's a great anecdote about doing trying to paddle over that river. But yeah, it's I enjoy it. It's just not my favorite. You know what I mean? It would be. It just
no, but
be
you're a different
10.
generation to me. I think there's a generational thing here.
I saw it when I was really young. It's one of those formative war movies, but the more I watch it, as I said earlier, I just wanted more from it because there's so much they try and cover everything, but then there's so much you think that would be absolute gimmies to shoot and have characters on. They ignore it. Like Lonsdale Force is totally ignored. The Oosterbeek Perimeter is just, there's maybe like a scene where some lads are sort of aiming guns down range, but they're not doing anything.
But that's all to do with financing and money.
I know.
And
because they wanted James Caan in that sequence.
Yeah, well, John Wayne was supposed to be in it originally. I mean, much as that scene with James Caan is really nice, it doesn't add anything to the film. No. You don't really need it. I completely agree.
Yeah, every time I fast forward for that bit, I just can't.
Yeah,
it was short because we heard from Sebastian Abinieri, who was on the filming. He said that sequence was shot so Attenborough could take it abroad and get American funding and Japanese funding because he was a huge star out there. So that's why that sequence was shot. And it was taken there as a mini movie. It wasn't meant to maybe be in the movie. We don't know.
Yeah, because in the first week of filming, they shot Grabner's Charge over the bridge, and that was what got them the rest of the money to bring the American stars in. I guess Cannes must have already been over there, but Alan Tompkins told me that they had just felled. You know, there's a load of felled trees where the medic station is. He drove past that on the way back from another shoot. That they were doing, I think, up at the bridge. It was on the road on the way to his hotel, and he just saw them all and went, "This would be a good place to set up the medical station." And they impromptu set it up and were filming there. But you know, when I was talking about depth of field in shots and production value, like if you look at that scene where they're talking about the radios not working in the desert, and any biscuits? I think the biscuits are in your tin, sir, and all that. And you look at that shot. Behind the window, which have got all the crisscrossing, there's a guy outside talking, and behind him there's a Jeep going past, and behind him there's something else happening. And Attenborough was great with that. He didn't do a lot of all that kind of visceral stuff, but he made sure he packed everything in all of his shots. Like the scene where the guy comes down after asking for the surrender, and he comes down from the bridge, and you've got, 200 German extras marching past, and then in front of them there are 2 artillery pieces waiting to take pot shots, and behind that there's Frost's stand and smoke coming from the buildings. I just love the attention to detail.
It's the framing, isn't it? Yeah, it's
a poison chalice. No one could do a single movie about that.
Yeah,
thing.
It's for me. It's one of those. I love it, but it's not anywhere near a favourites list or best of list. But I wouldn't want to not have a copy of it, and I do return to it quite often and watch it, and I always enjoy it. But it never quite. It's not enough to make any kind of list. But yeah, I do like it. But when you said about Saving Private Ryan, if you were doing the first 20 minutes of a war film, it's going to be top 5, isn't it? But maybe, but it's not going to be anyone's. Well,
no. I would, although I don't personally want to see A Bridge Too Far per se be made, I would like to see a mini series about the Battle of Arnhem, like a British Band of Brothers. I've been working on Paratrooper for a while, although that's not specifically what that is. But I would love to see a 6-part about the whole thing with the Battle of Arnhem, and it's perfectly doable. And I've been to the locations, and there are some of them that are completely workable. Including outside the Stitching Museum and all that stuff. So let's wrap up our final choices on the foreign language quick, because we could talk about Bridge Too Far all day. So Paul, what's your final foreign language choice?
Well, it's weird because if we'd been doing this last week, I hadn't seen this film. So I didn't know anything about it, and now I do. And now, literally, it's one of my favorite films of all time. Although I may still be basking in the glow of having just seen a good film, and maybe next week it'll have dropped down a bit. But I'm going to Denmark, and I'm going to that film, The Bombardment, that just came out on Netflix recently.
Okay.
Which I just thought was absolutely amazing. I just thought it was. I wasn't really bad choice of an image to advertise it on Netflix, because it had a picture of the two guys walking to the Mosquito, and I thought it was going to be a film about an aircrew. And although there's an aircrew in it, it is absolutely not a film about it. And I'm one of those people. Normally, I research, I go and look what a film is, but and cutting a long story very short, I've got Netflix back on my Android box that I didn't have for a long time, and it was the first. I fired it up, and it was there, and I just thought I'd watch it. And all I'd read about is a couple of tweets about it, and Mag watched it with me. Just loved it. I just think just an amazing film. If you don't know what it is, folks, it's about the tragic incident in Copenhagen towards the end of the war when a RAF raid to eliminate the Gestapo headquarters. A Mosquito gets hit by anti-aircraft fire as it goes over. Well, no, it hits a pylon, doesn't it? It hits a pylon or something. And it tragically crashes into a school. And then the next wave of bombers coming over think, because they can see this building burning, it is the target they're going for. And lots more bombs land on this school. And lots of these Danish kids get killed. And
oh, man.
They do this wonderful thing with the film where it's a real story, but the characters you follow are fictitious. So they insert different people into the story, but the basic thing is true. And there's a nun, there's a Danish guy who's actually serving for the Germans, and I just absolutely. I mean, I didn't say loved it because it was harrowing. It was difficult to watch.
You appreciate it, don't you? You appreciate.
But some of there was a shot. As a director, there's a shot where one of the mothers, who's not sure where her daughter is, runs out of the theater where they're waiting for news, and it's that the camera is going backwards, and like you said about depth of image. It follows her like 3 or 4 streets. Now, the actress is running at full pelt. The camera is going back behind her. Every time she's going, there's things going on in the background. There's a guy with a bicycle. There's people walking past. And she goes back home and gets to a house. And I won't say what happens next. But it was the cinematography and the setting up of that was just mind-blowingly good. And the kids with dust on them coming out of just... If you haven't seen it yet, don't be put off by the image of the RAF. It's not a film about the RAF at all. It's such a bad image to advertise it. But that's it. Bombardment.
Yeah, the English title of that is The Shadow of My Eye.
Yeah, and I don't know why they've called it Bombardment on Netflix, because The Shadow in My Eye and the Danish poster seems to be much better. Anyway, whatever. That's my final choice.
I have to say, it's got fantastic reviews on IMDb, and you can always spot the fake reviews a mile off.
What did you think, Robbie and Matt? Because you've seen it, haven't you? Both of you.
Matt's seen it.
I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it. I had a busy weekend. I was going to watch it, and I put out a tweet saying, "Has anyone seen it yet? Let us know your thoughts, etc." But I haven't gotten around to watch it yet. So I'm excited.
On my list.
You haven't seen it?
Phenomenal.
It's. I mean,
and you'll want to do a show. You'll immediately want to.
Oh yeah, we fully plan to.
Yeah, we do plan.
Just stunningly good.
Well, if you need a Danish guest to come on that one, I'm available.
And I'm noticing in the comments, both Cliff Derlin and Darren Little both thought it was good. So
yeah.
I got really good feedback from that.
So despite their affirmation, we're still going to watch it. No, I think I saw the trailer for it, and I did pick up on the fact that it was Danish. As soon as you started describing it, I was like, I'm sure I've seen this trailer. And just had a quick look at IMDb. That's going to be the first one of those.
Good.
I need to.
Yeah, it's high on my list.
Okay, the Bombardment. Robbie, what you got for your final foreign language pick?
Well, as I said before I come on, I hate to say I couldn't get 5. I racked my brains all week. I looked at lists of movies, and the 4 that I've chosen are the 4 that for me are the ones that resonated the most. I didn't want to pick another one and try and sort of say I liked a film that I sort of maybe watched once or twice. So I really couldn't I know there is going to be a 5th foreign war movie, because obviously there are loads, and there's some fantastic movies on that list. But I couldn't get 5 right now. If you ask me in a month's time or 2 months' time, I'd probably have one. But right now, those top 4.
You've got plenty to watch now.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll just say that it's the bombardment as well, and give another vote for
Well,
Denmark.
you can say you can put Stalingrad up there as my number 1 because I genuinely think that's one of the most affecting movies I've seen.
Yeah.
Well, it's already your number 2, so it's number 2.
Of course, and it can be my number 1.
Shall we just
So
put the Russian version? Put the Russian version of Stalingrad.
No,
please,
that's
no.
no good, is it? No.
Well, what about Escape to Victory? Because Sylvester Stallone, it's still a foreign language film.
There's no Luton players in that, so can't say that.
Escape to Luton.
Who'd want to do that? Who'd want to imagine escaping to Luton? Good God.
If you don't win the football match, you will have to live in Luton for the rest of your life.
Darren just mentioned the foreign battle, and I'm going to give that a shout out as well.
Forgotten battle.
I mean,
no.
It was a missed opportunity. It was a missed opportunity.
Very worthy. But
it was a good. It was worth watching. I think it is worth watching. It's
awful depiction of the glider pilot regiment.
Looks lovely. I just don't think the multiple narratives worked.
Nicely shot, poor execution,
badly
on the narrative, and
so it's
not a great
Matt's choice then. I want to hear Matt's.
What's yours, Matt?
So Matt, what's your what is your
another Danish film? April 9th is my pick.
Well.
You've been pushing that, haven't you?
April 9th is one of my absolute favorite films.
It's got all those lovely old vintage vehicles.
Old Nimbus motorbikes. All the lads are on little push bikes. It's great. So it follows a platoon of Danish cycle infantry during the retreat through Jutland, and it's just such a really interesting film that looks at an element of the war that you never see. So there's been a few since. I think there was The King's Choice, which was another Scandinavian movie. I think it's Swedish. And
I think that's about Norway, if I remember
Norway.
Yeah.
And it's so well done. It's beautifully shot, but it's not grand in scale, but it captures this small group of bicycle infantry really well.
Yeah.
And there's a few really lovely little set pieces, but they're set pieces that are so small that they work. So you haven't got this grand blitzkrieg up through Denmark depicted, but you get these little battles that show how almost, I suppose, that they didn't really have a chance, the Danish army, because there's lots of little things that they show where the guys are using rifles that are antique.
Yeah, I remember.
It shows them passing single rounds to each other because they've run out, and they're single loading, and that the end of the film just shows the futility of them trying to hold, despite valiant efforts. And it's great because you see them cycling through the Danish countryside, going through little villages, and it recreates photographs. They recreated the mise en scène from photographs from the war. So there's one where there's a barricade and a motorcycle with a 20mm cannon on it. And that was recreated directly from some photographs they had from that village, and they recreated it as a set piece, where they opened fire on a German armored car. And I think that part of the war is underrepresented, and it's so interesting to see it depicted in such a skillful way. And so that's why it's my favorite pick. And whenever anyone asks me like, what war films should I watch that I wouldn't normally have thought of, I always think, well, there's a load of great Finnish ones we've already mentioned, and then there's 9th of April, or April 9th rather, which is just phenomenal.
Yeah, I really do like that movie. It reminds me of another one of your choices. The scenes where you're following the little unit around in the village really reminded me of the British unit in the old Dunkirk film.
Yeah,
because that's a very minutiae view of that part of the battle. It's not until later that it's got a more epic feel. And they're just trying to get back and do their bit, sort of thing, and it's not really clear what's happening, and you've got that same sort of chaotic communication.
They're just so underprepared for that kind of war. Then it's just not within their capability to really offer much more than a token resistance. Sadly,
the shock when the first guy gets killed, I remember, is quite a prominent. They're sort of kind of, up until then, it's still a bit of a game and exciting.
There's a bit where the first battle and he opens fire with the light machine gun, and it's just bouncing. It's the best weapon they have, and it's just bouncing
Yeah.
off the armored car.
Yeah,
That's the futility of trying to hold off that kind of an attack is just plain for them all.
great stuff. I think it's just my one. So my my number one foreign film, we've already done it, was Downfall. So there you go. So guys, that's our lot. I think need to add Bridge Too Far up here. I've added Escape to Luton on Matt's.
Fantastic.
So
We just made the playoffs today, so I don't mind. You can bash Luton all you want.
So
Oh, they're going up, Rob. They're going up.
Oh, let's hope.
That's quite a list,
by the way. So you said at the beginning, Lance, there'll be a film that Paul hasn't. I haven't seen it. I've heard of it, but not seen it. So that's my viewing for the sometime of the weekend, hopefully. Because
I'm amazed. I'm amazed actually that we all managed to have films. I mean, there's at least two.
Stumping Woody on war films is hard, I must admit. It's
Yeah.
very difficult to stump Woody on a war film. So to get one that he hasn't seen is pretty up there.
I know. I feel pretty vindicated.
I thought we'd see Kelly's Heroes in there.
If it was top 10, then yes.
Yeah, I mean, I was tempted, but I just decided, okay, I'm not going to put my Five Guys on a Mission movie in here.
Yeah.
You know, and if I was doing Five Guys on Mission movie, which could be outside of World War II as well, Kelly's Heroes, Where Eagles Dare, Dirty Dozen would all be in there.
I always think if the ones I've picked were my Desert Island DVDs, then that'd be them, the ones I've picked.
Yeah. Because they're less depressed. I mean, Bridge Too Far is not it's the first half an hour is great. The rest of it's not a fun watch.
No,
I do still want to see it on the cinema.
To be fair, if you look at the list, we haven't gone for very many
big hitters.
Roaring,
you think
with the heroes win films? I would wager that more than half have ended pretty bleakly.
I don't know what that says about us.
Well, maybe that shows a different appreciation.
We're deep. We're
of history and things. Yeah. Maybe that's how we're just so edgy and cool.
And Cliff just mentioned Ice Cold in Alex, which is another film that would have definitely made the top 10.
I've got to be honest. My list of favorites is pretty fluid.
Yeah.
And whenever I get asked to do these kind of lists and shows, it's always what is coming to my mind right now
at the time. Yeah.
I mean, this is another great one for foreign films that didn't make it on my list, but I highly recommend it, about the true story about the Jewish boy hiding out in the German army. And, that's a great film that I also got to see at the cinema, also at the Curzon.
Well, the Schindler's List as well, which is one that I really thought about including because it's such a powerful film. But then for depictions of the Holocaust, there's so many others that you could choose from. And and do they fit in with? And is it right to call that a favorite film? I didn't think so.
Well,
they're more in like a best depiction of Holocaust. More, I think, than a favorite.
I think anyone who would call Schindler's List a favorite film sounds odd.
It does sound weird, doesn't it?
I had to have a 10-year gap between watching it the first time. It wasn't one I rushed out to buy the DVD of. I've got it now.
It's just the scene where they all hug him as he says he's sorry he couldn't help more. It's
It's weirdly, it's a film of kind of almost diminishing returns for me because Liam Neeson.
I haven't seen it in such a long time, so maybe if you watch it more, it loses some of the effect. And if you've seen other more recent depictions of the Holocaust, perhaps it isn't quite as effective as it was when it came out.
I think it's partly because of Liam Neeson. Is that Liam Neeson back then when he made Excalibur and Schindler's List, and there was the Kinsey when he was now he's the action hero kind of guy. I kind of like his action films, his throwaway, but maybe now I haven't seen it. Like you said, I haven't seen it for a few years, but I think if I watched it now, I'd struggle with kind of dealing with Liam Neeson kind of doing something different to being Liam Neeson.
Right.
I didn't have that issue with it. I had the same worry, but it made me realize actually this guy can do a lot more than just action shit if he's given the right script. I was surprised no one had this in their list.
Nearly did.
It's a good one.
Did.
Yeah, and the reconstruction of it, which again I also saw at the Curzon when it was re-released, is a much better movie than the original.
See, I was thinking about putting Saving Private Ryan, but it would be top 10, but it would be top 10 for reasons above the movie. Like there's sequences in that movie that I enjoy, but I like it because of how it formed me and my love for history. It's one of the earliest movies I remember watching.
It's
But
an important
the
movie.
more you watch it, as Woody said, I think it's diminishing returns because you can slot in well, they clearly didn't involve the British, and this sequence here doesn't quite add up well, and
there's a couple of really bad continuity errors in it.
Exactly,
as well.
exactly. There's sequences that were left out that should have been put in for story reasons that weren't. But for giving the genre a shot in the arm in the late 90s, I mean, I think we have to thank the longevity of the big budget war movie for Saving Private Ryan in some respects. I believe that anyway.
Yeah, no, definitely.
I mean, Saving Private Ryan.
But I also think
it got Band of Brothers financed.
It did, of course it did. But I also think it's damaged the war film longer term because it's made the war movie now into some sort of event movie, whereas it used to be every odd year you'd get a good budgeted war movie come along like you did in the 70s, 60s, some respects the 80s. But now we get a Dunkirk, go away. We get a 1917, it goes away. Now we're getting the Oppenheimer film that's going to be the next big budget war movie, and it will go away again. And I think Saving Private Ryan started that trend, and I kind of wish it hadn't, because I think it hurt it in the West at least. Maybe not anywhere else, but in the West, I think it's hurt it. Longevity.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Guys, before I forget, I'm going to do a special on Masters of the Air when it airs. I'd love to have you all back for that if you'd be up for doing a chat. I don't know, maybe we could do some kind of watch party of the
that'd be good, wouldn't it?
That'd be fun.
We could do a watch party of the first couple of episodes, or right after we've seen it.
Do we have any idea of air date for that yet?
I've not heard anything yet.
I mean, there was a whole load of reshoots.
I heard that.
I've got various people who've done various days on it and all the rest of it. And that's another one I'd tried my best to get on the script writing team for.
Yeah, we're trying to get ourselves on the press release circuit for it, aren't we? To get an early watch, Matt. We're trying that, aren't we?
Make sure you need your Danish assistant. Some of you carry your books and things. But listen, would definitely do a watch party on that one, and because I was going to say, what are we excited to see? That's the one I'm actually quite.
I'm excited to see Bombardment. That's for sure. I need to. That's on my list to check out. I'm
not excited to see the Operation Mincemeat.
Well, no, I'm not.
Really?
I'm not excited, but
I'm not excited about it. I want to see it, but I'm going to be going into it with a bit of a.
Well, after the Forgotten Battle, it's kind of the Forgotten Battle was a big disappointment for me because we'd anticipated it for a long time and hoped it was going to be something more than it was.
I'm not looking forward to the Oppenheimer film that Nolan's making because I think Nolan makes one type of movie.
Dunkirk,
and the casting is just it's all over the shop for me. Cillian Murphy might be good at one thing, but we're not. Do we have to have a thing where now because Cillian Murphy's good in one thing, he's now going to be good in everything? Kind of like the Tom Hardy treatment, where Tom Hardy was good in one thing, but now he's have to be on everything. But that's my personal thing. I've got a thing against casting someone in everything at the moment just because they're good in that one thing that's popular.
Do watch our interview with Jason Fleming for a very entertaining, true Tom Hardy story. I'm not going to say any more about that, but it's on the interview, and I couldn't believe he mentioned it, but I'm glad he did.
Fantastic.
So, guys, you've been absolute legends. It's 10:30. I feel like I've kept
11
you
where I am. It's bedtime now.
Yeah, I've kept you on way above and beyond the Call of Duty. But
Matt's driving down to me tomorrow, so he's going to be tired as, aren't you, Matt?
every time we do have guests on, though, I do like to give you an opportunity to plug anything you've got coming up, be that book shows, your channel. I mean, obviously we've mentioned the channels already, but maybe so Matt and Robbie, what's your have you got another? There's the 5th episode on the inner workings of the bolts of the Piat coming up.
No, we are actually.
Ironically, I've never actually made a in-depth video on the Piat. It's yet to be made.
What have I started, Robbie? I'm sorry I even mentioned
I know, I have to edit all this now. Thanks. No, but we are tomorrow, as I mentioned, Matt's coming down to me, and we're going down to the Tank Museum to record a special episode on their Fury event on Friday. So that will be that'll be next week's episode, and we're chatting to David Wiley all about the Tank Museum and how it got involved in the Fury movie. So that's going to be good fun. So look out for that, everyone, on the socials and whatnot.
Yeah. Don't forget to check out Robbie's channel, RM Military History.
Yeah, yes,
good
please.
one.
It'd be nice to get a few subs.
Yeah, please do.
And Woody as well. Please check out Woody's
Mate,
channel.
Woody, of
chuck
course.
me all that, because you've got quite a few different things between you, the two of you. So send me one email with all the links in.
I'll chuck everything in it.
I'll copy and paste it all, and then I'll add it into the bottom of this. And Paul, last but by no means least, what's next for you?
Just more of the same. Just more historians, more World War II stuff. Just it's keep on going. I'm taking a week off because I'm on a tour. I'm actually going out and doing my proper job. Essentially, I'm doing a tour with James Holland of Normandy for 7 days. That'd be quite fun. And then lots more stuff. You've got Eastern Front.
Won't that be with a lot of your audience though? So that'll be it. Won't be a break
they'll be on
for
the
you.
tour anyway. So yeah, no, I've got lots more of the same coming really, and yeah. So yeah, can't wait.
David K in the chat has just asked for links. So just to let you know, David, the links for Paul's channel and Matt and Robbie's main channel are already there in the bottom stuff. I will be updating it all tomorrow. I'm not going to do it now because I've learned if I do it as soon as I get off a stream, I'll usually make mistakes. I'll wait for my brain to be a bit fresh. But we will update that. Paul, I think it'd be great if I can. I don't know, it might not be this year, but maybe it will be. If I can get over and we could go and do the Saula Glen.
Also, Glen, it's a bit of a drive for me, but it's
I know it's not close to you. I know it's it's a bit further down,
4 hours or something. Yeah, but yeah, we can do it. But yeah,
I mean that sounds like a fun video diary straight away. Me and Paul in a car for 4 hours. It'll breeze by though. By the time we finish,
yeah, we'd get into some obscure movies, wouldn't we? Yeah,
yeah. By the time we finish talking about the merits of the last Panzer, we'll be in Leon. So yeah, that's a really short conversation, So next from the Outcasts, guys, we've got a couple of interviews coming up. We've got one with actor Phil Davis. Myself and actor Craig Fairbrass are going to be doing our top 5 crime genre shows, cop shows of all sorts. Between the two of us, Craig, of course, has played numerous villains, and he and I also wrote
Midsummer Murders #1.
Indeed, his Midsummer Murders #1 episode. Did the Vicar do it? But we also
SWAT series of the 70s. Surely, come on.
We had a crime genre drama series that went all the way to the top people at Sky, and it was nearly a yes. And the reason it didn't happen is another story that I'll tell another time. But we're still hoping, called Second Skin, we're still hoping to get that made at some point. It's a cracking story about a corrupt British police officer. So, which of course, that sort of thing doesn't happen in real life, as we know. Great, guys. You've been fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on and being my guests. You really didn't have to, and helping our little channel grow. And it is in its very embryonic stage. I really do appreciate the support, and I just hope you'll all come back on again. And we'll definitely do the Masters of the Air.
We'll all be back.
What's that?
When the check clears, we'll all come back.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Fantastic. The donut is in the post. So, guys, if you're watching, don't forget to check out my guests' channels. Do like and subscribe. Share the video. I will do a timestamp on it at some point, so you'll know which bits to watch for your favourite movies. Great list of films tonight. Those guys that stayed for the whole thing, including Paul's crowd, thank you very much for the support. Do come back. And we'll see you all again soon. And